Calling to order the Monday, September 16, 2019 regular meeting of the 37th Council of the City of Berkeley. Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Here.
Councilmember Dean.
Here.
Councilmember Gavin.
Here.
Councilmember Hennon.
Here.
Councilmember Stedman.
Here.
And Mayor Turbrack.
Here. First order of business tonight is the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Baker with support from Councilmember Stedman. Are there any corrections or additions? Seeing none, Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll?
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennon.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. At this time, would you please stand for the invocation and the pledge? With us today is Pastor Zach Dunlap.
Let's pray. Good and loving God, thank you for who you are and what you do, for all the blessings you've poured out into our lives, including the blessing to live, work, and play in this wonderful community of Berkeley. God, thank you that you are with us through all the changes and complexities of this life. Be with us here in this room. Grant us empathy and compassion as we listen to one another's concerns. Grant us wisdom and discernment as we seek to make decisions in this community and in this room for the good of all. We ask this in the strong name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, it is now time for citizens' comments, when you may present your thoughts on issues that are not included on tonight's agenda. Council members will not engage you in discussion, but if your concern needs to be addressed by a member of city staff or department of the city, please make sure you sign your name on the sheet provided at the clerk's table. Reminder, you can speak on a specific agenda item while it is being considered, and although I don't state this very often, I think it should go without saying, but there will be no personal attacks on anybody tolerated at any time. I will ask you to please sit down. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and city of residence.
Good evening. My name is Betty Carpenter, and I live in Berkeley, 2235 Gardner, right across the street from the community park. And I'm here tonight to talk about the batting cages that will be built across the street from our home. We learned of these batting cages after much digging and a meeting with the city manager, the manager of Parks and Recreation, the Dad's Club, and Bridget, thank you, Bridget, Bridget Dean, just last week. It was a big surprise to us, and it became clear that Parks and Recreation and the Dad's Club did not want city residents in the batting cage area to know. They didn't want us to know because we're right across the street. We learned it was a line item at a city council meeting early in the year and not discussed anywhere else. May and September, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board stood mute on the subject except when I brought it up at the September meeting. It was not on the agenda under park improvements. In fact, Bridget Dean, who is the city council liaison for Parks and Recreation, didn't even know. Teresa and Matt concurred. It would be a departure from normal practice to notify residents of this sort of park business. I ask you why. I'm not very happy. Why weren't the residents notified? This will be a big effect on our lives from April through October. We won't be able to sit on our front porch. I ask, how would you feel if that batting cage was in front of your house? The noise of bats pinging on aluminum from 2 stalls with pitching machines that pitch balls between 50 and 80 miles an hour at 6-second intervals. It will be loud. Our house is 180 feet. I can tell you my husband paced it today from that site. And 3 of our neighbors are even closer. Will the noise level be in compliance with the city's noise ordinance? Has the city done a sound study? And has anyone measured the decibels from the cage to my porch? What if the noise ordinance is violated? Will it be shut down? Does the city allow people to have backyard batting cages? What is the city planning to do if it floods? That corner floods regularly in a downpour. What about lighting? We have enough lighting from the ball fields as it is. The traffic and the parking, it's already a problem. We pay our taxes, put thousands of dollars into our home, and elect city officials to protect our biggest investment. That's you. You hire managers to look out for our best interest. But it's not happening in this case. Our house will lose value, and we will have to move. I appeal to you to change the location of the batting cages to the Cambridge location between Robina and Gardner, or the school property behind Anderson. Parks and Recreation could negotiate a deal with them since the schools use the fields too. I urge you to reconsider and think about how jammed the park is already. This location should never have been considered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Dave Carpenter. Good evening. I also live at 2235 Gardner Street, across from the park. I think our biggest concern has been the process and how these batting cages were decided on. There seems to be an extreme lack of communication within the city, between the city manager, and the Parks and Rec and the residents. We would like to see a little bit more inclusion with residents in decision-making in terms of improving the park, as far as that goes, anything in the city, to be part of, at least informed ahead of time before decisions are made to do the building of this cage. We had to do a lot of investigative work on our own just to find out what was going in there. Those pipes were delivered back in May. We didn't know really what was going on. We didn't think much about it until one of the neighbors said that there was batting cages going in there. So we just think that there's a lack of communication within the city council, Parks and Rec, the city manager, and that communication needs to definitely be improved. And I don't know about the other departments in the city, but I think that's also a concern. The statement that was given to us last Tuesday at a meeting that we had with the Parks and Rec and the liaison, Bridget, and the city manager, and the head of the Department of the Parks, was that it isn't policy, it isn't procedure to inform residents of such decisions. And I think that's really not the way to run the city or to run parks, to include residents in, at least inform them ahead of time of what is going to be done, even if the decision is going to be made. The Dad's Club raised the money, and by the way, they do a great job. I think it's great for the city to have such an organization to promote the well-being of kids, ball playing, and that sort of thing in the city. It certainly has helped a lot of families. There's over 800 members in the city as well as surrounding areas. The Parks and Rec, I think, do quite a nice job in maintaining the parks. So we're not here to complain about the park or the Dad's Club. We're really talking about the process, the way this was done and the way it went about. It almost gave us the perception that there was something that they were hiding, which I don't really know if that was the case. It could have been as innocent as just they decided and said, we're going to do it. We, again, would like to emphasize that we would like to see residents that are impacted, which there's only probably 5 or 6 of us. We probably represent 0.00001% of the total population in Berkley, but I think, we should have a voice and we should be heard and we should have some participation in that process. I think this city is a great city. It's a family community, and I think when you talk about inclusion and incorporating other people together on these decisions, you'll get a better outcome, and you won't have residents like us coming and complaining and saying to you, this wasn't done right. This was not really a decision, I think, that should have been solely by Parks and Rec and the Dad's Club and the city manager. We were also told that, what do you expect? You live across from a park. I don't think that comment was in order, or I don't think that you as council members would agree that that is the way to run the city or to deal with residents. The problem is going to be noise, and again, I don't know if there's been a study done on the decibels, but that's something I would encourage you to check into. House values could be affected. Our house value could be affected. There's people that are near us that aren't happy, that aren't here tonight, figured that they wouldn't have a voice and they wouldn't be heard. So we're representing, maybe 8 to 10 people. So we just would ask that the council, the city manager, and the Parks and Rec director reconsider, and even in the future, consider the process of communicating what you're doing and not have the council in the dark and not knowing anything that was going on until we sent an email to the council members. By the way, only 3 of you responded, and I find that a little troubling because some of the rest of you got the email, I know, because it went to all of you. I don't know if that was intentional or if that meant that you aren't interested, or residents are just complaining about something that isn't going to change. I don't know the reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Sean Rafferty, resident of Berkley on Gardner Avenue as well. Just wanted to voice my concerns as well regarding the batting cages. I'll keep it short. I agree with everything the Carpenters had to say. My biggest concern, as it is already a problem, is the traffic as well as the parking. Unfortunately, I do drive a larger vehicle, and it's already kind of a pain and dangerous in that area for backing out and pulling in, and it's only going to continue to get worse, as well as the constant noise that we already have a problem with, and of course living across from a park that's fully anticipated, but driving that additional volume through there is also going to is a bigger concern for me as well. So I just wanted to voice those concerns. Again, if it wasn't for my neighbors, I would have had no idea that this was going up until I physically saw it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Judith Pintel. I have lived in this city for over 51 years. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't be here. So when I heard all that was going on, I was heartbroken. I really felt my city had abandoned me and all of my neighbors. We couldn't even get a response in the beginning. I have a neighbor who has told me they are moving out because of this, and I know another who is seriously considering leaving the city because of the way we were not informed and the lack of response that we got in the beginning. You're here to protect all of the citizens of Berkley, not just a few. Please, consider all of us. Include us in your decision making. It makes a big difference. We may not like the outcome, but at least we know we've been heard. And that's all we're asking. Listen to us. Hear us out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Matt Church from the Berkley Library. I would just like to announce the fall book sale that'll be taking place at the library. It'll kick off on Thursday, October 10th from 4 to 8, Friday, October 11th from 10 to 6, and then Saturday is Bag Day from 10 to 3, so lots of value on that day. And then the Friends are going to do a pre-sale opportunity on Thursday the 10th from 3 to 4, so members of the Friends can get into the book sale and get the first crack at finding the good things. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Kirby. I'm the president of the Berkley Dads Club. We've been going through the batting cage thing here for, I would say, since February is when I believe it first came about. Unlike some previous statements here, this was on the agenda of the City of Berkley Parks and Rec Advisory Board for March. That is an open meeting, open to every single resident here. The agenda was clearly posted according to the Open Meetings Act. To say that somehow it's not been properly, advertised or any of that, I would pretty much stick to the facts. A little bit of due diligence is you could go to the building department here, and our stamped print is on file with them awaiting a permit as we speak. It's not a lot to go and check out what's actually happening there. I don't believe that it's hidden anywhere. There was no, people trying to hide stuff from the folks that live near the fields. They're our neighbors. I mean, I've lived here for 50 years myself. Every one of these people are my neighbors. I care about each and every one of them. And I'm sure the rest of our 2,000 members do too. I'm not here representing 8 or 10 people or even 5. We have 2,000 people in our organization. And overall, why this is a great thing, I don't believe that it's going to boost our organization up massively with the people here by adding a batting cage. I don't see how the increased traffic, it will be the same members that we currently have. Hopefully some younger kids looking to get into baseball with their dads can show up. But other than that, we expect our current membership to be using this. The thing is, this is going to be a $50,000 item that we raised funds for and will be donating to the city. It'll go in this city's Parks and Recreation inventory, another item that we're going to have in our space. We did not expand any areas towards a residential zone property at all. We brought the fences in. Those bats that are going to be dinging there, the noise that's going to be made, those kids have been playing baseball there for 70 years on that same exact piece of lawn. It is no closer to a house than it has been for the last 70 years. I don't understand where that comes from. It's a pretty basic batting cage. There's 2 tunnels. There's going to be an electrical plug there. Most of the people, they're going to have to throw the pitches, and the kids will be batting. Some people may bring batting machines there or pitching machines there. That is not for us to decide. We will be building the thing through donations, and then we'll be donating it to the city, like we have the last $400,000 or $500,000 that we've donated to the city. Not one time have we had anything special as far as a public hearing or going to the neighbors to discuss that amount of money and those things. When we're over there building the concession stand and building the dugouts, building all those fields, I don't remember. Granted, it was a little before my time, but I don't remember any type of special meetings whatsoever or any policy in place that I'm personally aware of that would require anything like that whatsoever. This is a Parks and Recreation use item being built on a Parks and Recreation zoned land. I'm not even sure I can find nowhere that would even require a site plan approval. So we're in for the permit. Our print is stamped by a licensed architect, to somehow suggest otherwise, or that we were in some deal or something. We are not trying to hide anything from anybody. It's a simple batting cage being built on a baseball field. Pretty simple baseball for a lot of kids. These are the types of things that we leave to the next generation. This item might be a little late for me and my kids, but the next kids will use it. It was like that when I was a kid. They built this stuff before I came along when I played baseball in the dad's club, and now we're just doing it for the next generation. You know, we can certainly respect our neighbors' interest and concern, because I do agree, parking is always tough there. It always is. But we're not adding any more lights to the field. If there's lights on, apparently there's lights on. We're not adding anything like that there. These are going to be 2 batting cages that will be held within the current field of play. So we're welcome to discuss with anybody about this. We've went through our normal channels, the exact normal channels that we do. We bring it to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, which was done in March, and as we went through, we didn't know if we could raise the funds or not. The funds were raised by parents and kids and donated to us with their dreams of having a batting cage, and we're going to try to get that done. There's no doubt about it. We look at those kids when they're donating their money to this, man, and tell them it's going to get done. It's going to get done. We've looked at other spots. This is the best spot. Our club moved those fences in to a proper distance so that we would not encroach upon anything further than the existing ball field that has been there long before I was born. So I would just hope that everybody gives that a chance and gives us the benefit of the doubt of the good things that we do for the community. And I'm not sure about where else we could put it, but we've looked at all the other options, and I don't see anywhere that we can really put this without affecting more things than what we are there. So I appreciate the Parks and Rec Department. I appreciate the city manager talking with us about this and going through all this with us. And the building department will do its job and its due diligence. And at the end, if it's a project that should be there, we'll be putting it there. And we appreciate the support. And those that don't support it, we do appreciate your concern also. So, thank you.
Thank you. Last call for citizens' comments. Seeing nobody else coming up to the microphone, we will close the citizens' comments part of our evening. Yes? Okay. We'll keep it open for one more second.
My name's Steve Siebold. I've lived in the city for over 50 years. And I want to thank you guys for screwing up Coolidge. It's nothing but it's terrible. You ought to see Greenfield. All the traffic's going to Greenfield. It's backed up from 12 Mile to Wiltshire when I try to come home from work. So I got to take Talpa down and come around the side streets. And another thing I heard is that when they developed the our La Salette, the school, and the building, put up those new buildings, that the DDA is going to have control of all the tax monies. I heard that from one council member, and then another one I heard that they're only going to get the money, the DDA is going to get the money for just the school. Now, why wouldn't all that tax money go back to the city? I don't understand it. All right? And as far as getting back to that road, if these guys want to ride their bikes, and honest to goodness, I don't see any bikes going up and down there. Why don't you make them pay $130 to $200 like you got to pay for your taxes on your car and stuff? Have them buy a tag, and since they're using the road too, have them make their share. And I hope that the city gets the money instead of the DDA for tax monies to, prop up the city and keep our economy healthy here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we will close citizens' comments and move on to our regular agenda. Ms. Harold, would you please read the items on tonight's consent agenda?
Approval of the minutes. Matter of approving the minutes of the 37th City Council meeting on Monday, August 12th, 2019. Warrant. Matter of approving warrant number 1342. Ordinance number O-07-19, matter of considering the second reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Berkley, Michigan to amend sections 138 through 383 and 138 through 388 of Chapter 138 zoning of the City of Berkley Code of Ordinances to designate nursery schools, day nurseries, and child care centers as special uses in the office and LB local business zoning districts, and to prescribe a penalty for violations. Full copy of this ordinance is posted for 10 days at the Berkley City Hall, Library, and Community Center. Ordinance number O-08-19. Matter of considering the second reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Berkley, Michigan to conditionally rezone property described as lots 13, 14, 15, and part of Lot 12 of the Denler Acres subdivision from office district to multiple family residential. Full copy of this ordinance is posted for 10 days at the Berkley City Hall, Library, and Community Center. Resolution number R-21-19, matter of approving a resolution to accept donations from area businesses and organizations in support of the summer reading program to the Berkley Public Library.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Councilmember Dean. Any changes or corrections? Seeing none, Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll?
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. Tonight's consent agenda has been approved. We now move on to our regular agenda. Ms. Harold, would you please read item number 1 on our regular agenda?
Recognitions, presentations. Matter of any recognitions or presentations from the consent agenda.
I have asked Councilmember Stedman to read Resolution R-2119, but before that, would our library director, please come up to the microphone?
This is a resolution of the Council of the City of Berkley, Michigan, accepting donations from area businesses and organizations in support of the summer reading program to the Berkley Public Library. Whereas the City of Berkley Public Library has received donations from area businesses and organizations for the summer reading program at the library, and whereas the Friends of the Berkley Public Library and Vibe Credit Union served as primary sponsors by donating funds for programs, prizes, and related expenses. And Bigby Coffee, Black Ritual Tattoo, Chemistry Salon, Clark's Ice Cream, Cultured Cook Lisa Howard, Doggy in the Window, Drought, the McCarty Team, Northern Auto Repairs, Nova Chiropractic, Pampered Chef Diane Bruce, Some Girls Boutique, Taco Bell, Toad Vine Books, Twice Around Antiques, Vincetta Garage, and Yellow Door Art Market served as prize sponsors by donating gift certificates or items. And now, therefore, the City of Berkley resolves, Section 1, that the Council of the City of Berkley accept these generous donations, and Section 2, the donations provided were utilized to support the summer reading program of the Berkley Public Library. And Section 3, the Berkley Public Library and City Council are grateful to the Friends of the Berkley Public Library and Vibe Credit Union as primary sponsors, and the 17 other businesses that helped make the summer reading program possible. Introduced and passed at a regular City Council meeting on Monday, September 16th, 2019. Daniel J. Turbrack, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Church.
Great, thank you. So as you can see, great support from our business community. Year after year, we have great prizes donated. The Friends of the Library and Vibe Credit Union continue to be great sponsors, really covering a lot of our programming throughout the summer. We had 393 kids register for the program this summer, and they read a combined 9,698 days throughout the summer. 31 teens registered and completed 27 bingo sheets, and 64 adults registered and completed 48 game cards. So it was really a great summer, and we're grateful for everyone's support. Thank
Awesome. Now you get to come up here and get this resolution.
Good job, Matt. Excellent. Thank you. Congrats.
Great job as always, Matt. Thanks for All right, Ms. Harold, would you please read item number 2 on tonight's agenda?
Presentation, matter of receiving a presentation by the Lakota Group for the Downtown Master Plan.
Mr. Baumgarten, you want to take this off?
Yes, sir. As you know, the Downtown Development Authority Board of Trustees has been working to leading up to this point. They've been working with the Lakota Group in order to set a vision, much like we're going to be hopefully doing in a couple of subsequent agenda items, but set a vision for the direction in which we manage our resources for our preferred future in downtown Berkeley. That is the area, it covers the entirety of the DDA Authority District. So that goes from Greenfield along 12 Mile all the way to Coolidge, and then takes a turn to the south and goes Coolidge from 12 Mile down to 11 Mile. So a preferred comprehensive plan, and nothing's done in a vacuum. So Lakota Group has been going through and making presentations to joint meetings of DDA board members as well as some council members. They've made presentations to the Planning Commission, and now they've been invited this evening to make a presentation in front of City Council as well. So this is just, we're in the process of trying to make sure as many people as possible know about this plan, get to see what's in it. It will be going back before the Planning Commission, who ultimately is tasked with holding a public hearing and adopting it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, so my apologies, Mr. Mayor. I will do my best to get this right, but Nick Calidresis?
You got it.
All right, from Lakota Group will be your presenter this evening.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt. Calidresis is Greek for Smith, just in case you where that came from. I'm with the Lakota Group. We are based in Chicago, Illinois. We're a planning and urban design firm, and we were part of a team that developed the Downtown Master Plan. We had the Community Land Use and Economics Group based out of Philadelphia to help us with the market assessment end of the project. We also had Sam Schwartz Engineering that addressed the transportation and parking aspects of the plan. I know that some of you have already seen seen our presentation. I'm going to do a very short and brief one today. The basic mission, Matt hit it on the head. It's to define a vision, to engage the community about what that vision will be. It is a guiding policy document for the DDA and the city when it comes to investments and policy decisions for downtown's future. The other thing is to maintain downtown's authentic character, to maintain its environment. It has a mid-century feel, post-World War II feel, and the community told us that was very important to try to maintain. So the plan tries to achieve that in many different ways. The other aspect of this is this plan does fulfill section, and remember this, section 125-4207 of the Michigan Public Act 57 that does permit downtown development authorities to develop long-range plans. The plan has 3 main sections. One is the setting the stage that provides a brief overview of the community engagement process that happened over the course of this past year. Section 2 is the Downtown Master Plan, and it's really centered on 4 goals, and I'll talk about that later. And then Section 3 is about implementation, and it gives a detailed matrix on how to implement the plan. The planning process, we started about a year ago, almost a year ago to this day. We spent the first few months engaged in the community, talking to many different stakeholders, some city council members, other members of the community to find out what they feel the big issues are in the downtown. We had a community workshop to present ideas and strategies to the community. Later on in the process, towards January through April of this year, we developed the master plan and again brought that back to the community in a couple of workshops and stakeholder interviews. And over the last few months, over the summer, we did one more community workshop that was outside during your arts event in June. And we had a painting event where we asked people to participate in painting a mural, and we were able to get additional feedback during that process. And as Matt has said, we have presented this in front of some members of the City Council and the Plan Commission already, and we're here right now. The community engagement, we did 2 basic formats. One is in-person engagement, And again, as I mentioned, we did a series of stakeholder listening sessions during the early part of the process. We did traditional workshops. We also did field offices in the downtown. So we actually set up shop in a storefront, and we had people come in and take a look at our workshop materials and give us feedback. So we did that twice during this process. And then we also did online engagement. We did 2 online surveys, and we had over 300 responses during those surveys. During the process, we were able to come up with kind of the key opportunities and challenges. Some of these are fairly self-evident, obviously, for many of you. What we heard during the process is people want to maintain that small town character of the downtown, the low scale, and trying to encourage more businesses to locate in the downtown. We also wanted to look at the development potential of the downtown. There are opportunities to do development. We are not the first ones to explore that. The downtown design guidelines that were developed last year did explore some potential opportunity sites, and we took an opportunity to look at a couple more. We also wanted to maintain, the community wants to maintain this strong sense of family-oriented community. And so we wanted to make sure that that aspect of downtown is kept. The challenges, it's a linear downtown. It's a big downtown. It's an L-shaped downtown. There are many different nodes in the downtown, so try to link all those nodes together is kind of really the ultimate goal of the downtown master plan. The absence of a public gathering space, we've heard that consistently during this process, to have some place in the downtown for people to gather on a regular basis. The need for more businesses, small-scale businesses. We'll talk more about that later. And there is a challenge of perception that residents are hesitant to accept change. We heard that loud and clear in this process, that probably small change, incremental change is probably the right way to go. The downtown master plan, as I said, has 4 main goals. One is to, something popped up. Uh-oh. Something got in the way. The first goal basically is to diversify the land uses that are in the downtown. It is obviously commercial oriented. It's always going to be commercial oriented, but can we add different types of uses? Is it possible to add more residential here and there? Is there a possibility to add more offices? Can we have different types of retail in our downtown? So really that first goal is to diversify the land use base. The other is to improve its urban design character, to make it more visually appealing for people to want to come on a regular basis. And the urban design aspect really kind of feeds into the transportation aspect. The key thing is to make our downtown more pedestrian friendly, to be able to encourage more people to walk to downtown, to be able to take in a whole environment. And so one way to do that is to have varying levels of streetscape improvements. So there is a series of conceptual ideas for how the streetscape can be improved. Last, the transportation aspect. There is an emphasis on parking. This plan does update the last parking study, which I believe was done in 2008, I think. I can't remember exactly. I think it was 2008 that the last parking study was done, so we updated that. And the last goal is to recruit businesses that give us that sense of retro cool. What makes downtown Berkley cool, and it has that mid-century flavor. We wanted to be able to try to maintain that as possible. I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but goal 1, the key aspect of the downtown master plan, we took a cue from the downtown design guidelines, and we categorized the downtown into 3 main parts. There's Gateway West. There's the core downtown where the Berkley Theater is at. That is probably the most pedestrian-oriented part of the downtown. And then the last part is the Gateway South. The plan presents very refined land use strategies for each of those areas. The Gateway West area is an area where we can encourage some infill development, some new types of businesses to reuse some of the spaces there. The core of the downtown is where we want to be able to recruit more different types of retail and keep that pedestrian-oriented orientation. And then last but not least, the Gateway South is where we think there could be some additional opportunities for development that would introduce office, residential, to help kind of strengthen that end of the corridor and provide people opportunities for people to live in the downtown and to walk to different parts of the downtown. The second goal, as I mentioned, is about streetscapes. I'm not going to get into too great detail. The main emphasis here is to encourage more facade improvements, building improvements, signage improvements, to be able to upgrade the look of some of the buildings and businesses in the downtown. To have that public gathering space, that's really important, and so the downtown plan does have some concepts of where a gathering space could happen on Rabina and where the Berkley Theater is located. We also recommend integrating sustainable design and green infrastructure elements into your streetscape so you can mitigate stormwater and flooding. The third goal is mobility and parking. As I've said, we do have recommendations on improving the pedestrian environment to encourage people to walk, so we do have recommendations on different intersections where they should be improved, enhancing the bicycle network, improving transit service and having different connections. As I'm sure you all know, many people today are now using Uber and Lyft, and can we be able to have what are called transit nodes in our downtown where we'll have distinct places where people who take Lyft can be dropped off to take public transit elsewhere in the area. And then wayfinding and signage for our parking areas are really important. We heard that loud and clear from people that public parking is not signed very well. They don't know where to go. And so as time goes on and we add more public parking, having that type of system in place will be important. We did take a look at the parking system, and we have several recommendations. We have recommendations on updating your parking regulations. We do believe they can be adjusted downward, actually, and there's a reason for that, mainly to try to encourage more development to happen in your downtown. During our engagement process, we heard from 2 property owners and developers who told us they couldn't develop in the downtown because the parking standards are too high. So that's an impediment to having investment in your downtown. And then last but not least, probably the big recommendation we have is establishing a shared parking district. That is a mechanism that many communities have used. Rochester in particular has adopted it, and it's an opportunity to be able to work with property owners and being able to share parking and to be able to relax the parking requirements a little bit so you can be able to use the available parking supply that you have in your downtown. And I believe in our master plan, the one key statistic that came out when we did our parking study is that your parking supply is only used about 30 to 35% during the course of the year. And usually a vibrant downtown is going to see a utilization rate up towards the 70s and 80%. So you have plenty of parking in your downtown. It's how it's managed and how it's used that's really key. And then last but not least, the business development. We have several different recommendations on that. Being able to focus on several different retail concepts, casual dining in the downtown, having artisanal retail or experience retail is important, and then expanding the toolbox of incentives to encourage businesses to come. Last but not least, the implementation plan. We focus on several different things in implementation. We do have recommendations on zoning. We do recommend that the zoning districts in your downtown be consolidated. I think there's 7. Right now, we do recommend they get consolidated down to 3 to make it more easier for investment to happen. So just to make it easier for developers to understand what's required of them. And then there is the implementation matrix that explains how the plan will be implemented. So that's it. Any questions?
Questions from members of council from the presentation?
I have.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Honor. We were given earlier a draft from July 8th, and tonight we got a new one. Is there any major change? I went through this one, and now is there any major changes in the new one?
In the revised draft, we do have an updated section on parking.
Oh, okay.
Because there were comments from other council members, and we responded to those comments, and we made revisions, and we submitted a memo to that fact summarizing those changes, and I hope that other people had received that memo of what was updated.
I didn't see the memo.
Is that memo?
It was uploaded to the shared drive for...
Okay.
That memo summarizes the changes between documents.
Thank you.
Additional questions on this presentation? Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah, overall I've been pleased with the document, but I'm the one that had most of the questions on that parking section, and it is still very poorly done. It is, I find significant flaws in the methodology. I find it significantly misleading. You mentioned 30%, 30% parking utilization. That is a 1 hour time slot, and, ideally, yes, we could have shared parking among, places, dining establishments open. They could be using shared parking for the office that isn't open at that time, except for our very linear downtown. And I find it there were hosts of problems like that, and then the recommendations are based off of those. And, I have a very long list of problems here. We won't go point by point through them tonight unless we really care to. But with this parking section as it is now, I could not support it.
Well, again, this is a presentation. We know there's going to be additional steps, and we're not obviously voting on anything, so there is time to continue discussing if there are other questions on this.
I believe our memo does address your questions pretty completely.
They attempted to address, but mostly ignored the concerns.
Additional questions? Any other questions on this?
Thank you, Your Honor. First, if you would like to highlight some of the other experiences and clients that you've worked with to help develop these kinds of things and the way in which they were received in other communities, and then the experts or the background that you bring to bear to this type of work, and then secondly, timeline going forward. What goes next? You mentioned something about planning commission, so maybe a little bit more on your experience in doing these kind of things, and then next steps.
Well, thank you. I've been doing downtown planning for 25 years, and I've been working in communities throughout Michigan, Illinois, Virginia, Texas. So my colleagues and I, we bring up, I think, a pretty good national level of experience, and we wanted to write a document that was a little bit different. We didn't want to make it too legalese or too jargony here and there, but we wanted to present different ideas from what we've heard from people, and we think it's pretty comprehensive because we look at all different aspects of how a downtown operates, and it will take time to implement. Some recommendations you'll decide not to do because it's not feasible or practical at one time, and there may be other recommendations you find are really important for the community that you'll need to address. So it's really a guidebook. We hope that it's going to provide some direction for decision making for the community. So the one thing I tell communities is take it at your own pace. Nobody's has a gun at your head to tell you got to do it all in one day. And when you develop the plan, the real hard part now is to get everybody on board to make things happen. So we took a snapshot of the community during this process. We heard from them. Can we claim that we heard from everybody? No, but we've heard a snapshot of the people. And I think it's just the next step is really, get the DDA together, work together as a team, find what's really important for you to implement, and then go and do it. The one thing I would add is that try to implement something out of all the goal areas because you want to try to a comprehensive approach. So it does take all of those elements to make it successful downtown.
Thank you. And I think the specific next steps for us include a planning commission visit. Is that correct?
Yes,
next
sir.
on the tour?
Yes, sir. Yep. There'll be a public hearing and ultimately we'll go to planning commission to choose to approve it or adopt it.
Nice. Great. Thanks to you and the team for the great work thus far, and here's to continuing the journey.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments on our presentation today? Okay, well, as Mayor Pro Tem Baker said, thank you for being here today, one, to allow us to go through this presentation and following the very involved process that we've undertaken over the past year. I certainly look forward to moving through this process and working certainly the city with the DDA together. As you mentioned, it's not a, hey, you have this and next week all of this stuff gets done, or ever. Some of the stuff is certainly, it's just, as you mentioned, for practical purposes, some of that will not happen. But based on the input that you've gotten from feedback from other stakeholders in the community throughout the process. I think you've done a good job of putting together something that reflects not only vision, but also the values of our city, and that is critically important for me in any master plan document. Yes, there's vision, but it has to be about Berkley and represent what we are as a community. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Harold, would you please read item number 3 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M-73-19, matter of authorizing Carlisle Wharton to assist the City of Berkley with the 2019 master plan in an amount not to exceed $69,720 from account number 101-801-818-000.
Is there a motion to approve M-73-19?
So moved. Support.
Who moved it? Okay. Motion made by Councilmember Gavin with support from Councilmember Dean?
Sure.
This side of the table.
It was a chorus.
Pick 2. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excitement's building. We have our comprehensive master plan process really starting to gather some momentum here. I'll take you back a little bit on the process. As we've been discussing for quite a while, it is time to revisit our community master plan. Our last comprehensive master plan was done over 10 years ago and has been amended every couple of years or so, specific to topic areas. It is definitely time for us to go back through and make sure that our updated master plan gathers completely the respective view of the community as far as where Berkley is going to be in the next 5, 10, and 20 years. So we went out, and in May, actually, we had bids opening. We had bids. We went out. We solicited responses from qualified vendors way back in May. We received those. We opened them up. We did have a great number of responses. We had 6 total from 6 very qualified applicants. From there, we did put a little bit of a pin in this as we updated our planning personnel, and we have a new planning director in place. But went through a process where a select committee of the Planning Commission chair, the ZBA chair, member of council, myself, and then our previous community development director went through and pared the number down from 6 to a total of 3. Those 3 were selected for interviews in front of the same panel. That panel met last week. We had presentations from Carlisle Wortman, from Giffords Webster, and from OHM Advisors. Each did a really good job, but ultimately the body decided to recommend to council as a whole Carlisle Wortman. And we are joined tonight by a representative of Carlisle Wortman, who I believe has put together a presentation. Mr. Ben Carlisle joins us, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I know you have a long agenda, so I'll be very brief in the presentation tonight.
We're good on that.
We should really open this agenda up more, this laptop up more.
Thank you for the warm introduction. My name is Ben Carlisle with Carlisle Wortman Associates. We have been working with the city for about the past year, so I believe I've either met most of the people on this council and or have worked with you in the past year. So first off, I want to thank you for inviting me tonight, and I want to thank the interview committee for recommending us for approval. I'm not here alone. There are 5 key members of our team that are also as part of this team. Carlisle Wortman, we are going to be the project lead. We're going to be the main planning facilitator. In addition, we're going to be the main community engagement specialist. But we put this team specifically together based on our understanding of the community and in conversations with members of the community in terms of what issues we should expect moving forward. So there are other members of the team, and we also brought in, as one of our members, is Tesco Associates. They're an urban planning firm out of Evanston, Illinois. I actually used to work for them. We have a very direct and close relationship. They're going to be in charge of urban design and placemaking. So many of the elements that was brought up in the downtown plan, Tesco's experiences take that and actually build upon that and actually provide much more detail in terms of how some of those elements could be implemented. With us also is HRC. You're very familiar with HRC. You've had a 15-year or so relationship with HRC. They're going to be assisting on the transportation end of things, connections within the city, as well as any of the engineering and infrastructure issues that may come up as part of the process. In addition, we've also partnered with Cobalt Community Research. They are a community research firm out of Lansing. What we have found is a lot of the demographics from the 2010 census simply are just out of date. We're 10 years in the past. So we partner with them to bring some more expertise to the actual data, because they use a multiple collection of data sources to really fine-tooth going through your demographics as well as your projections, so we can much more pinpoint what we're going to be expected in the future. And last, we have OMMC. They're behind the scenes with us. They're going to do our graphics, and what they're really in charge of is more quality control for the actual document that comes out. A little bit about Carlisle Wortman, understanding to get to this point, we have at least proved somewhat worth of our experience, but we have completed over, roughly or conservatively, over 100 master plans in the state of Michigan. Many for your adjacent neighbors and your close neighbors, including Plymouth, Northville, Royal Oak, Troy, etc. And Mr. Gavin actually asked a question during our interview about how are we going to address issues of border issues between across neighbors and jurisdiction neighbors. My answer to him was, we probably work for most of your neighbors, or we have worked for your neighbors. So we have direct contact with some of your neighbors. And so hopefully we can be the conduit between the two communities to address any of these border issues coming up. In addition to us, we also have the manpower of Tesca Associates. They have done over 100 plans and urban design plans, both in Illinois but also throughout the nation. So there's a lot of horsepower behind this team. This is the bread and butter of what Carlisle Wortman does. We are not an engineering firm with a planning division. We are a planning firm. That's what we focus on. We have 22 planners on our staff. So if I can't answer a question, I can guarantee there's someone in my firm that can address any question or issue that you may arise. So I'm always a little bit hesitant when I introduce this graphic about opportunities or issues that we may face, because we're just getting in the process. We don't know your community nearly as well as you do. But these are some of the anticipated issues that we may arise during this process. You have a diversifying and aging population. You have a revitalization attempts in a built-out community that's highlighted in the downtown plan. You have issues of transition. If the corridors are revitalized, how do you deal with that abutting land uses? And how do you deal with those, what we call friction points? You have a diversifying housing stock, or you want to have a diversifying housing stock potentially to address the changes in the population. Parking is an issue in this community. And most importantly, you have an active community. We have dealt with this issue or these issues in a number of our communities. So we have a lot of experience to bear about how we may approach these different issues in the process. What may work in Royal Oak that we did a plan for may not work here, but it may. Or what worked in Ann Arbor may work here as well. So we have a lot of different experience points to draw upon through the process. We do not enter the process with a cookie cutter approach. We do, though, note that we do have some fundamental elements that we can try to incorporate into our whole planning process. And the first one starts with community input. You have an active community. We need to engage your community. So we combine both a technology and a traditional method. So we do the outreach that you normally find in the traditional. We do surveys, et cetera. But we also combine technology. We combine social media, website, those type of elements into our planning effort. We find the best way to get to people is to go out and get in the community and reach out to them. Long gone are the days where we're going to have an open house and expect we're going to get 200 people to come. It doesn't happen anymore. So we need to go out and reach out to the community. So we try to establish different touch points throughout the process with different community members to engage them in the process throughout the whole project. Process is important. I'd be remiss to say that at the final document, the product is really important, but equally and potentially more important is the process to how you get there. Because I'll talk about implementation in a second. I don't want anything in this plan that either has not come from your community or has not been vetted with your community that I can defend. And so the process to get to that point is just as important as the final product that I give you. And lastly, it's meaningful. It has to be a meaningful engagement. It cannot be simply just lip service. We have to listen to the community, hear what they say. I think we all recognize there will be parts of this master plan when it's adopted that not everyone in your community is going to agree with. But I want people to understand why we made those recommendations or why it's in the plan. They may not agree with it, but at least they understand why it's in there. The second issue, or second approach that we tried to work through is the identification of opportunities. Through the community engagement, through our understanding, through our professional experience, we try to identify what these opportunities are and build on them, because that's the fundamental element of your plan. And lastly is implementation. I can tell you now, if you're expecting a 300-page heavy text policy, wonky document. That's not what we're going to give you, and that's not what we do. We are going to be much more graphic heavy. It's going to be much more action oriented. And lastly, it's going to be very focused on implementation through priorities, responsible party, and funding sources. If there's not a dedicated funding source to a strategy, we typically don't put those in the plan because you can't get things done without a funding source attached to it. In addition, we put responsible parties to it. The city should not be expected to get everything done with your geographic borders. There are partners that need to come to bear as part of this too. So you'll notice that we have other partners that are part of the responsible party. And lastly, I may have a little different philosophy on this. I don't like to put anything in the plan that we don't foresee happening. So if it's in the plan, we expect it to happen. It may not happen in the first year, it may not happen in the 10th year, but it should happen within that lifespan of that 20 years. So we're really focused on items that can be actually implemented and actually make action and change in the community. So one of the things I always kind of leave this with is this really is a legacy document. You know, when 2040 comes around and you're redoing this and we're all retired on the beach somewhere, what's the legacy of this plan going to be? How do we actually implement the plan and make positive change in this community? Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Questions for Mr. Carlisle while he is at the microphone regarding the plan as presented, the bid document? Councilmember Gavin?
Thank you, Your Honor. More just a comment. I just want to thank you, Ben. I got a chance to sit on the interview committee, and I think the public input portion of it, along with the implementation portion of it, were the things that most impressed me. So I think it's a robust plan in terms of public input, and I think that that's, as you said, you know, the process is nearly as important, if not more important, than the actual end product. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah. Based on the applications that I reviewed, I'm very happy with the selection. You know, I think you guys are going to do an excellent job. I wanted to know what, you know, if we approve this tonight, the next steps would be, and you know, sort of rough timelines.
Well, I looked at the same manager. My assumption the next step is we would finalize some sort of contract as part of this, and then we really rely heavily on a steering committee kind of approach. And so the first step is. We would like to work with the city staff and determine, and the council itself, on who you'd like to be part of that steering committee, because that starts establishing the work program. We have lots of ideas for community engagement, but we want to work with the steering committee in terms of what works in your community, because they may tell us this doesn't work. And one example we gave in the interview was we were working in another community, and they said the best way to reach the community is have a pancake breakfast on a Saturday morning. We didn't think of that, but that came from the steering committee. So those kind of things are needed. That's why the steering committee is so fundamentally important to start the first step. In addition, we do a lot of the data background and kind of the reconnaissance stuff now. It's an 18-month process. One of the questions that came up was, how are you concerned about engagement during the winter? I'm not that concerned about engagement during the winter. If you said do engagement during the summer, I'd say, no, let's hold off, but during the winter. So we really start with the engagement, we start with the steering committee, and we build those elements up, and then we start the plan drafting. And I assume the plan drafting may not be until, you know, mid to early 2020 at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions?
Just a brief comment. Yes, thank you. I'm glad. Likewise, am pleased to see you guys here today to help guide us through this journey. And it may have come up during the interview process. I wasn't in for the specific questions, but as it pertains to this steering committee, we do have a Citizens Engagement Advisory Committee, which has been able to help provide guidance on avenues and pathways to reach out. And so perhaps as part of that composition, as we think about how to engage this, we could tap into that expertise either as a seat in the committee or in some form to continue to leverage the expertise that they've established as well. So looking forward to it.
Appreciate your thoughts. And the steering committee really should be a broad spectrum of your entire community.
Right, good.
And it doesn't have to be just residents. We invite property owners or business owners to be part of the steering committee if the council agrees with that approach.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to your recommendations on how to assemble one of those with the diversity of perspective and opinions. Thank you.
Yep.
You mentioned, you know, if we're looking for, you know, the big, you know, kind of binder that we had maybe in the past, there was a lot of pages that ends up, you know, being more of a doorstop than anything else, and most folks are going to view this plan online, and even whenever any of us reference it, I'm sure we'll have a document we'll be referencing online. Is it possible for this plan to be adaptive electronically? So as things either happen or as things change, because we can look out for 20 years and what we want to see, but we know that things are going to twist and turn as it is. How responsive will the plan be to adapting to our changing needs and goals in the city?
That's a great question. From a technology standpoint, it's really easy. We actually usually do two plans. We do an online version and we do a print version. From a process, it's a little bit more difficult because, and I'm going to defer your city attorney on this, in the state statute, there's mandates in terms of how you amend the master plan. You are by law required to review it every 5 years, so
yes.
You will have to do that every 5 years. But what I always advise my communities to do is have at least one time a year your planning commission is going through your document and crossing off what you did, placing goals on what you want to do, and then from that, if there are amendments that need to be made, you can do that, but you have to unfortunately or fortunately have to go through the process. So it's the technology part's easy.
Yeah. Okay, and that was my main question.
Yeah.
We've been through the update process, the amendment process, but I don't think enough residents knew once we went through the process and had the plan where we were moving through it, and being able to visually show that, update the plan online, as you mentioned, if that's pretty easy. Look, we've taken these steps. It's just so we can, again, keep everybody engaged, because we do a great job of keeping people engaged through the process, but it's after where we kind of lose.
I know you have a long agenda, but just to really quickly reflect on that. 2 parts to that. One is I look at your steering committee as your champion for the plan. Their job's not over when the plan gets adopted. They are really in charge of implementation and moving the plan from drafting to actual implementation. The second part is my goal is when we walk out and you have adopted this plan, that your new community development director almost has a work program and a check-by-check description of what she needs to do every single year as long as you're planning commission. Now, that will change over 20 years, obviously, but there should be, our goal is to leave with a plan that basically is a matrix and a work program for you to implement this plan moving forward.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here this evening and answering our questions. Are there any additional comments before?
Mr. Mayor, purely for the benefit of the Mayor Pro Tem, we hope that 2020 offers a clear vision of what to do in the future.
Oh, man.
It was very foresighted of you to think of that, yes.
Okay, got it. Everybody else is good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, seeing no additional questions or comments, again, Ben, thank you for being
I
here
look forward
and
to working with
presenting.
everyone.
We certainly look forward to going through this process with you. Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on 7319?
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. We now move on. Could you please read item number 4 on tonight's agenda?
Resolution number R-22-19, matter of approving applicant for issuance of an on-premise liquor license under Section 521A 1B of 2006 PA 501, applicant Gatekeeper Games LLC, 3691 and 3995 12 Mile Road, Berkley, Michigan.
Is there a motion to approve R-2219?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilmember Stedman with support from Councilmember Dean. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you recall, Gatekeepers took over the former Doll Hospital location. They've been working on renovating that space for quite a while. Actually, recently had a ribbon cutting. So they are making good progress. What they are come before this body today is to ask for a development license for on-premise consumption. They're able to ask that because they actually fall within a development district, in this case our Downtown Development Authority boundaries. You put in your application, you'll see that they've put forth a very complete set of the items that we asked for. Of course, they've been through a state process as well, but locally this has been reviewed by our planning department, Department of Public Safety, as well as the city clerk's office. And we see no reason not to recommend approval administratively. So it now falls before the local governing body to make a determination.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, is there anything else we need to know?
No, nothing beyond what the city manager has mentioned.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? Or?
Yes, the applicant's here as well as
Their attorney.
Yes.
I just have
You guys can talk.
I just have a brief little statement.
Sure.
And if there's any follow-up questions, feel free.
Certainly.
My name is Brian Beckerman. I represent Gatekeeper Games as its attorney before this honorable board. I assisted Christine Barnes with her application. I believe we have included all necessary documentation and information required by you in our pursuit of the Development District liquor license. We are aware that if we are lucky enough to have this board approve the application, we must still proceed with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission in our request. One item of note is that we would like to amend, if possible, the Friday, Saturday, and time ending at 1 a.m. instead of 12 a.m. due to the numerous gaming tournaments that are expected to be played at the establishment. With that being said, I want to provide just a little information that's not necessarily included within the application, giving you a flavor of the store, the people involved and affiliated with it, and the good that it does within Berkley District. For some of you who were at the ribbon cutting on the 29th, you notice that as you first come upon the business, the decor of the doorway itself is distinctly magical. It conjures a picture in your mind of medieval times, and you know that this is not a simple store of gaming and games, but actually a destination into another realm, known as the flavor or ambiance of Gatekeepers. I first met Christine and her husband, Tim, when the business opened its previous location at 3127 West 12 Mile in Berkley. They, along with all of their employees and patrons, were extremely warm and welcoming. I never forgot when my daughter walked into the store with me and a dungeon-type game was being played. My daughter was asked if she'd like to join in. She ultimately didn't, but the smile on her face the entire time was priceless, and they had me hooked from that day. Gatekeeper Games is extremely excited to be here in Berkley. In fact, it is a staunch supporter of the entire Berkley community. The business donates to the Berkley Library, Berkley School's robotics program, Berkley High School girls swim team, to name just a few. It also has initiated an event called Crits for Cancer, which is actually a Relay for Life event, but with gaming language instead. Furthermore, as many of you may know, the business itself is an active chamber member. Its professionals are also from this area. As its attorney, I live in Huntington Woods. I left Berkley because I lived on Buckingham. It was too close to Clark's ice cream, and you could tell what that did to me. I also asked a friend, Keith Logston, who's an architect, to help out Gatekeeper Games and provided the necessary essentials to result in the interior that you see. I believe he's also tapped to help with the exterior also. And Mr. Logston, I believe you may know, was a member of the Berkley School Board. If Gatekeeper Games is so lucky to obtain the approval of this board, it is hoping to be the only establishment in the city of Berkley, and in fact, in the state of Michigan, to serve a special brew from River Rouge Brewing Company, which is located in Oak Park. Also, it would actually be the only gaming store in the entire state of Michigan to have a pub in its store. The time, money, blood, sweat, and tears spent by Christine and those involved to make Gatekeeper Games not only the success it is today, but hopefully in the future, is unparalleled. Ultimately, its goal is being recognized as a destination, bringing people far and wide to not only the store, but the entire Berkley community. With that being said, if there are any specific questions, feel free to ask. I do have two additional items which I'd like to present to the board if I may approach.
Sure.
One is a letter from the Christ, the Good Shepherd Church, which is next door to the establishment, with a recommendation and an acceptance by Monsignor Harry R. Posner, who's the pastor. I have only 4 copies. If you want to pass these around, I know this is more than 4, but
We can share. We'll
take a look real quick, yeah.
the next item is, although we did include documentation, I wanted to be specifically clear, and once again, I have a few copies of this also, is that I believe there's a requirement of $75,000 being spent within the business. It's actually, my client has spent $180,000 in renovations, which will also be more than that when the exterior is done. I do have checks showing and evidencing at least over $100,000, which I thought would be sufficient. That is all I have to present at this time, unless there is any questions for myself or my client.
Councilmember Blanchard?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have one question. Is this a beer and wine license or a full liquor license?
I believe we are asking for it will be a beer and wine, a tavern license, but pursuant to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, we may have to not only look for that, but also a Class C and convert it to a tavern.
Okay. It didn't state that in the application anyplace that I could find.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions at this point? Mr. Attorney, Mr. Sterin, I should say, our attorney, sorry. The change in the time, whereas we have already obviously put this through our process and everybody has signed off on it with the times prior to asking to have them changed, what does that do in terms of us looking at this right now, if anything?
I think you can still proceed, but it's really a question of the council's comfort level, whether you would like more time to consider and digest that, or whether you consider that to be an immaterial change that you just want to proceed this evening with it.
To that extent, if this council does believe that it's a material change, we will request and stay with the 12 a.m.
I'm not necessarily saying that it is a material change. We just have a process in place, and
I understand.
Like to hear from public safety, and they may say, yeah, it's cool, no issues with that. That was my only question on everything else, and certainly have no problems with. Everything else was very thorough. We had all the information that we needed. Councilmember Blanchard?
Thank you. We're just talking on that.
Well, hold on. You can't, yeah. You can come up, though, but wait till he's done.
I thought you said if somebody wanted to add something while he was talking.
You come up to the microphone. You can come up to the microphone after Councilmember Blanchard. Yeah.
We're only talking about Friday and Saturday, right?
Right.
Extending the hours. So Friday and Saturday, we'd extend from midnight to 1 a.m.
That
is
is correct.
what you're requesting.
Those two.
That is correct. Everything else would
Okay.
remain the same.
Right. Okay.
Am I to understand this is where the...
Please go to the microphone. Again, I know you got to state your name again, even though you did earlier.
To understand this is where the Dowling Toy Hospital was at on 12 Mile?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you got a new pizzeria going in next door with a liquor license. You got a liquor store across the street, and you got one little strip of parking behind that store. And if this thing's gonna go gun-ho, like he says, they're gonna be parking up and down Thomas Street and all over. He won't have there won't be any place to park around there, especially because this is a pizzeria here. It's a well-known pizzeria, and they do a lot of business. And when you get down to this parking, and this other gentleman says that we can get rid of a bunch of parking and put up buildings and stuff, it ain't gonna happen there. You can't slip this, 10-foot pound of stuff at a 5-foot parking lot.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments? Councilmember Blanchard?
Mr. Mayor, what I would recommend, if it's okay with the attorney, that we vote on this to go into effect with the concurrence of the Public Safety Department. If they agree to it, then we could, we'll pass it now per their agreement. If they say no, it'll be 12 o'clock. If they say yes, it'll be 1 o'clock.
Okay. Is that okay with the maker of the motion, Councilmember Stedman, and the
Yes.
supporter, Councilmember Dean?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody else okay with that? Okay. So assuming public safety signs off, then is that fair? We're good?
Thank you. No, absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So does my client.
Any other questions before we call the roll? Okay, thank you. Oh,
Sorry, just, thank you for...
Everybody's jumping the gun right
I
on me
know, it's so
tonight.
exciting. Thank you to you and your clients for the continued investment and demonstration of support for the city, in particular the downtown. If we were to move forward with this, is there an approximate time frame? I know you still have some things here at the local level and at the state level, so when might you imagine folks starting to notice anything?
Well, they'll start to notice something right away, meaning that we're working on the exterior, at least the process of the exterior, but the actual liquor license, I'm sure your attorney can tell you, it can take anywhere between 3 to 6 months. Now, the fact that this process has gone on, I would say speeds up the process a little bit because a lot of the background and information has already been provided. But the LCC still has to do their due diligence. So we would hope between 3 to 6 months, but we do still serve packaged food and drinks, water, things like that at this time.
Sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, thank you for being here and presenting to us today and allowing us to asked some questions and being able to respond to them. So I thank you and congratulate the owners on the move and on the new store and the excitement that is certainly surrounding it. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on R2219?
Hennan.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We now move on to item number 5. Ms. Harold, would you please read item number 5 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M-74-19, matter of authorizing the Berkley High School Instrumental Boosters 2325 Catalpa Drive, Berkley, Michigan, to conduct tag days in the city of Berkley on Friday, October 4th from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, October 5th from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Sunday, October 6th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Is there a motion to approve M7419?
Motion to approve.
Support. Motion approved by Councilmember Hennan with support from Councilmember Gavin. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you recall, this is an event with long roots in the community, benefiting the instrumental boosters for the Berkley Band. This group has been great partners in each of the years that they've done this before. In the application, you see not only the information that they provided per our applications, but also the list of the 29 places that they look to enrich with their music, where they'll be actually out playing in front of these businesses now. So it's we're looking forward to seeing that. This has been approved by our various departments. We see there again with no opposition or no reason for denial. We do feel the application is complete, and we recommend approval to council.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anybody here tonight? Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Drobot. I'm the president of the Berkley Orchestra Association. I'm here representing the Berkley Orchestra Association, the Berkley Instrument Boosters, and the Berkley Choral Boosters. This year we've added the choral group, so all 3 of the music groups are working together in a great show of unity, and we hope that it all works out. We would really very much appreciate if you could vote to approve this resolution and allow us to do this. This is our largest fundraiser of the year, and means a lot to all of the kids. If you're aware or not, the district and we've all worked together. We provided $20,000 worth of instruments to the students and costumes and programs, and it's a delightful program, and the music program here at Berkley is renowned throughout the country. So anything you can do to help us, we would appreciate it.
Thank you, David, for being here tonight. Are there any questions before we Okay, again, I just want to make sure there wasn't anyone who's going to jump out at me and... No, we're good? Oh, Councilmember Hennan.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the work you guys do and, the great day that you bring, and praying that you have good weather for your event.
It never rains.
Even if it does, it's not going to stop anybody.
It's like golf, Never rains on the golf course.
Well,
never rains. Well, okay, it rains every year, but we do our best.
But we will certainly, again, thank you for being here, and of course, this council, we're very supportive of what you do and the programs at the school district, and we have a very good partnership, and if we can help support you. And it also helps that everything is turned in appropriately and all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, which is not always the case, but with when we're dealing with you, it typically is that way. So thank you for that, and we look forward to nice weather. And even if it rains, hey, we'll still get out there.
That's right.
We'll be there. Okay. Thank you again. And before you officially, you might want to stay there for a minute just to make sure this goes through. Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on M7419?
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennan.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Okay, you're free. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
On a positive note.
Yes. Ms. Harold, would you please read item number 6 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M-75-19, matter of authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Hubble, Roth & Clark, Inc., 555 Hewlett Drive, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, 48303, to perform professional engineering services at a cost not to exceed $59,499.98 for the park development at Oxford Merchants Park. This expenditure will be charged to account number 614-950-821-000.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve M7519?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Councilmember Dean with support from Mayor Pro Tem Baker. Mr. Baumgarten.
The Mayor, just briefly, the momentum continues on redeveloping our one of our soon-to-be favorite parks in the community, Merchant Oxford Park. It's now time to get into the design process. As you recall, through the hard work of Teresa and her department, we're going to be funding a portion of this through grant dollars, which we're very excited about, and we'll be working with the city's engineer to put forth a design that really makes this just an absolute jewel in the community. So you're joined this evening by representatives from HRC as well as Parks and Recreation Director Teresa McCarlton.
Ms. McCarlton.
Good evening. So you've seen this item before you several times in different variations when we've been approving grant funding or approving project agreement language. We do have a signed project agreement from the state, which now allows us to start the process of getting together the bid documents, which is where our engineers come in to help us through that process. One thing that was decided several months ago when we were doing our capital plan and funding our budget for the following year was to include the grant-funded items along with capital items that the council approved for this specific area. In speaking with our engineers, it makes sense to then have one bid for all of those items. We'll get a better project to scale or better cost for the entire project. We've spoken with the DNR. We are able to do that, to have the grant-funded items separate but on the same bid, and then also the items that the city will be funding through our capital improvement plan, which has already been approved. We're excited to get to this stage. The timeline was written for you in the document that HRC provided, which was provided to you as well. And we're looking to hopefully begin the construction on the project in June of 2020 with a completion towards the end of September 2020, early October 2020. So we're super excited to get the project started. As a recap of what is happening within this, for, I know all of you know, but for anybody else, the walking path, restroom facility, splash pad were all part of the grant-funded items. And then we're also adding, excuse me, removal of the basketball court, some lighting, benches and picnic tables, and then new playscape as part of the capital items. I'm joined here with Roland Alex and Adriana Melchior from HRC, and they will be assisting us through the next several months of the process.
Thank you, Teresa. I know you certainly have worked hard as your staff over the last number of years to try to make this a reality, and we seem to be getting incrementally closer to it happening. Mr. Alex, what do you have for us this evening? Anything you'd like to
Actually, I'd love to introduce one of our associates, Adriana Melchior, who's the head of our architectural department. I think she would probably be a better spokesman for the project, as she's one of the heads behind the idea of it. So,
Adriana, thank you.
Yes, my name is Adriana Melchior. I'm an associate at Hubbell Ross & Clark. I'm an architect, head of our architectural department. I'm excited to be working with Teresa on this project. The vision that Landon had for the conceptual plan as part of the start of this project is pretty exciting, and I'm really excited to be part of it because it's a fantastic vision for the park. It's going to be hugely transformative, and I think it's just going to be very exciting for the people who live in the community and are able to take advantage of it. The splash pad, we've had some discussions with Teresa on her vision for it, and I think we're definitely on the same page. We want something that's simple, iconic, and multifunctional. So I think it's going to be really useful both now and then in the long term. It's going to be a huge draw for the park, so I think that's a very exciting thing. And it's also going to improve access to the park and increase traffic, not in terms of just vehicle traffic, but people walking to the park. People coming from the nearby areas to take advantage of the great space there. There's going to be a shelter for pavilions, so for using for picnics and parties and events. And it's going to be a place where people can come and be there all day and have fun with their families. There's going to be bathrooms. So eventually, once the rest of the park gets developed, it's going to be really a showplace for the community. So it's very exciting. I'm very excited to be part of this. So thank you.
Thank you.
One thing that Adriana mentioned was a pavilion, and there are that is not part of this current project, just so people don't expect the pavilion come September next year. There are multiple other aspects that Parks and Rec and the city can hope to achieve in the coming years. Additional parking would be one of those, expanding the walking path throughout the park, the pavilion like we talked about. So hopefully this gains some momentum. You'll get to see residents really utilizing this park, and it can gain some good press throughout the community to support additional Parks and Rec projects at that specific location.
Thank you. Questions from members of council? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for being here tonight, and to Teresa and the team for their continued work in moving this forward. Off topic for just a second, I want to congratulate you and your team for the great work with the unfortunate demolition of the ice arena. I know it's tough to keep it safe and all that, but you guys are doing a terrific job with that. On topic, you've also been doing a terrific job with outreach thus far in terms of the intent and the progress with this very project here at the park. So looking forward, can you describe a little bit, I know it's a long ways away and we have lots of steps before we get there, but can you describe the continued ways in which we'll be reaching out to the neighbors and in the vicinity, and how we'll keep them involved in this project?
Yeah, certainly. So because this was a grant-funded project, the way that we communicated throughout, we had to host multiple community meetings, and also did a lot of social media regarding what the plan was, and also did that when we were going through the park plan as far back as end of 2015 and 2016. So we've done a lot of that. We'll continue to update our Facebook page as we have both the cities and the Parks and Recreation Department, and also the city's website. You know, we have the park plans from 2016 still on there for people to see that. So that's all been part of what we've done, and we'll continue to update through those channels.
Nice. Thank you.
Additional questions for our engineer or our director? Councilmember Hennon.
Yeah, just a question on scheduling. We're talking about a September, October 20th completion date, but I know a lot of people are very excited about the splash pad, which possibly is opening right when it starts getting cold. Is there any chance it might be ready a little earlier, and we get a little bit of the season in?
I think, and I think our architect can confirm this more, I think that's a conservative timeline. I think we're hoping to, they both know, I've spoken to them at length about hoping to move this as quickly as possible. There is another element to this, which is the DNR. So all of the bids have to be approved through them, and so that's why we're starting this process now much earlier than we normally would for a park plan or project, because of these other elements. We will certainly do our best. We know that people are really anxious to see that, because we've been talking about this since the city purchased the land in 2014. So we certainly understand that. Our own summer day camp, we take our kids to Heritage Splash Pad in Farmington Hills. So, we certainly know the need is there, but we want to make sure we're also, doing everything correctly in terms of making sure that all of the engineering and everything is on point. And so we will do our best.
You said Labor Day? Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to congratulate you again, Teresa, for all your hard work and your department. You guys really do function as a team. I know this was a team effort, but it takes a strong, solid leader to have the amazing team that you have. So kudos to you. And as I'm looking at these renderings of the splash pad, it really brings it to life, and it's very exciting. And I know that a lot of residents are excited about this project, and we can't wait for it to happen. And I'm just so happy to see such a positive development, not only in the city, but in one of our parks. So thank you.
Councilmember Gavin.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Teresa, for bringing this in front of us. Just a quick question on the visioning of the design of the actual splash pad itself. Were there comparisons done among other communities, and what kind of those splash pads look like in those communities, and how it might fit, or how it was tweaked to fit in Berkley?
Sure. So when we went through the initial process with Land and Landscape, who now is called Native Edge, at the time they were Land and Landscape, a lot of the meetings, the community meetings that were had and the surveys that they did came back with this emphasis on natural design, both for the playscape and for the splash pad. Certainly we've looked at, I've looked at probably several dozen different splash pads, both natural design in some downtown areas and then also with more play elements in some other city parks. Two things. One, in our surrounding areas, there's not a whole lot of splash pads, and you can find that through, just researching, like trying to find one. And then two, one of the other things that came up when we were doing that park planning process was the need to have a place to congregate and have like a community feel. And so the idea was to have a splash pad that when the water isn't on is almost like a plaza and somewhere that you can have, whether it's a band or something else, play like music in the park. So it sort of serves dual purpose, and as Adriana mentioned, is really multifaceted. So because of what came from those meetings, that's why we ended up going with more of a natural design.
I think that's forward thinking, so thank you very much, and thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Have we settled on a name yet for this part? I'm really not sure what to call it. At any rate, yes, no, this is exciting. It has been many years in the process, and it is starting to get a little bit more real. Now we're actually starting to put some timelines on. You said it was going to be done by Labor Day, and then those things are very exciting for the residents, and it's just thank you for all of your hard work. I know this certainly wasn't easy. Thank you, HRC, for your role. And if there are no other additional questions or comments, Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on M7519?
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. Thank you. We will figure out that naming thing soon. I can mop that up. Ms. Harold, would you please read item number 7 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M-76-19, matter of authorizing the mayor to execute a contract between SMART and the City of Berkeley for fiscal year 2020 municipal credit and community credit funds in order to provide public transportation services for the period of July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020.
Is there a motion to approve M7619?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion approved by Councilmember Stedman with support from Councilmember Blanchard. Mr. Baumgartner, it is July 1st, 2019.
Yes, what a time it was, too, Mr. Mayor. I actually don't have a lot to contribute on this one. This is yet another one of our great programs that's administered by the Parks and Rec Department and Teresa's fantastic team. They manage the relationship with SMART, and they're chiefly tasked with making sure these dollars are expended correctly. So Ms. McCarlton has information on this topic.
Good evening again. I can speak a little bit to the July 1st date. Obviously, we know that the contract, we bring it to you as soon as we receive it. This is something that comes before you, SMART dollars twice a year in the winter as specialized services, and today as municipal and community credits. As the city manager said, this is a program that we operate for transportation for our seniors and those that are disabled. I think it's one of the best programs that the city really and our department can operate, and the more that people are able to find out about it, and anytime I can speak about it, I'm happy to, which is why something like this is great. We do receive these dollars. We do weekly and also quarterly reporting on the funds that we receive, also the donations that we receive from the van donations, the miles that are driven, our staff hours and our driver hours are all reported to SMART. We operate 3 vehicles. We have a 26-passenger bus, a 14-passenger diesel bus, and a 6-passenger van. We were recently notified that our aging 6-passenger van, we are in the process in the next, hopefully, few months, going to be replacing that with a new van, which we're very excited about, and our city mechanic at the Public Works Department is very excited about. Our transportation is used daily for doctor's appointments, haircuts. We have weekly transportation several times to shopping, Kroger, Meyer, anywhere else that someone needs to go. Again, our boundaries are 8 Mile to 16 Mile and Lasser to John R. And we ask that people give us a 48-hour notice, but there are times that they call, and within 24 hours we pick them up for their appointment. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you for giving us a very thorough explanation of how important this service is to our community and how often it is used. The July comment was obviously a joke. These smart contracts typically come in a few months after they've already started. But at any rate, are there other questions for the director?
This is the same boilerplate we always get, so.
No, it is. Thank you, Teresa. And Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on M7619?
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennan.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We now move on to item 8 on our agenda. Ms. Harold?
Motion number M-77-19, matter of approving an appointment to the Historical Committee.
Is there a motion to approve M7719?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem, and I'm going to go with Councilmember Blanchard. Because
Seniority.
You guys always say I picked the wrong one over there. Okay. Mr. Baumgarten.
Mr. Mayor, this is an application for a reappointment to this particular body. The Historical Commission does not have a finite number of seats available, so we welcome one and all. It just happens, Ms. Mueller?
Yep, MC, yeah.
Ms. Mueller has long since provided very faithful service to this particular body, and it truly reflects a passion of hers. She's welcomed with open arms by the commission to return.
Are there additional comments? Mayor Pro Tem.
If I may, yep, thank you. Yeah, MC has been a great a member of the committee, and they eagerly await her official return.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there other comments? Seeing none, as Mayor Pro Tem said, eagerly awaiting her return and our approval of this. So let's not prolong that anymore. Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on M7719?
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennan.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Blanchard.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Welcome back, MC. And we now move on to item number 9, please, Ms. Harold.
Resolution number R-23-19, matter of approving a resolution to adopt a local pavement warranty program.
Is there a motion to approve R-2319?
Motion to approve.
Support. Councilmember Blanchard, with support from Councilmember Gavin. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is the first of 2 related items that arises out of some changes to the state laws. Each community has to go through, and if they ever intend to enforce a local road warranty program, they have to approve the following 2 items that are on the agenda this evening. To provide context on this, both the city attorney as well as the city engineer can fill in some information. I will note that while this first 2 items, this is the threshold for actually implementing this road warranty program is $2 million of Act 51 funding. And so I want to manage expectations now. It is rare and has not happened in the history of the city so far that we have a project of that scope. We've had, say, Harvard Road was our last big project, but that was funded by a combination of different funding mechanisms. But we don't want to forego the opportunity to have this in place sometime in the future.
Mr. Stanger, do you want to comment, or do you want me to throw it to Mr. Alex first?
It looks like Mr. Alex is anxious to go, so I won't steal his thunder, but I may supplement it when he's done.
Yeah, he'll correct me with all the things I say wrong, most likely. So, I know Mr. Schuler was hoping to be here tonight, but he had a previous engagement, so I'm standing in for him, a younger, plumper version of Derek. So this all stems from Governor Snyder's 2015 infrastructure bill. There's been a lot of discussion about warranty programs, especially for infrastructure. The legislature at the time felt that attaching a warranty period to pavement was an important part of that bill. So again, this is related to asphalt pavement or concrete pavement in and amongst themselves. It doesn't include any warranties on any water mains or sanitary sewers or any of those pipes. The threshold they set, as Matt mentioned, was $2 million, and that is of paving-related construction costs. So if you have a project that's $2.2 million and $800,000 of that is infrastructure improvements, such as what was done at Harvard, that would set that threshold less than $2 million for road improvements, and that would not qualify under this warranty. I don't want to get into personal opinions, but I think that the city's current bidding requirements do require a one-year maintenance and guarantee bond just as part of your typical programs. So you already have in essence, some sort of warranty that warranties the contractor's work. These warranties that were adopted typically are 1 to 5 years for an asphalt pavement or 5 years for a concrete pavement. There are some complexities as far as at the end of that warranty period, who evaluates that pavement, the mechanisms to which a contractor is held liable for those. This is a fairly new program. I'm not aware of any warranties that have come up and then have had to go in. There'll be some sort of litigation, and there is a provision for arbitration at the end of this. As you can imagine, most contractors are not going to want to come back at the end of a 5-year period and be held to improving these roads. It sounds good on paper, so with the contractors not going to want to have to come back at the end of that warranty period, they're going to attach a premium to these projects at the get-go. So I think industry, speaking to people in my office, we would think there would be a 15 to 30% increase in the cost of these projects to warranty them. So by implementing this, you have the opportunity. So if I always hate to be the first person to implement something and have to deal with the repercussions, but by the adoption of these, it gives you the opportunity as the industry vets this process to in the future include some warranty types of requirements on projects.
Mr. Attorney, I assume many of our neighbors are doing the same thing?
Yes, it's been my observation over the last several weeks, communities one by one are doing this. I think we have a deadline later
18th.
This month. Oh, it's actually later this week that communities are supposed to do this. This is pretty standardized. Everybody's adopting the same resolutions and the same program. As Mr. Alex indicated, there's a $2 million project cost threshold before this kicks in. And I guess the last thing I just wanted to mention, just so there's no confusion about it, this warranty program is to require warranties that the city will exact or require from its contractors. This is not a warranty that the city itself is giving on the roads, but rather it's just designed to make sure that municipalities throughout the state are getting appropriate warranties to ensure the pavement for some period of time, 5 years, I think you said, for concrete, and I think it's 1 to 5 for asphalt. And there's about 50 pages or so of specifications that I won't even pretend to understand. I would have to call Roland to explain them to me.
I think the way that the bill is written is they're forcing your hand, even though you won't most likely ever see a $2 million project. You have to adopt these if you want to receive Act 51 monies in the future. So unfortunately, they're kind of handcuffing. They're saying if you want our monies, even if it's less than $2 million, you have to enact these warranties.
Unfortunately, we are used to that sort of thing. And the very first line of Mr. Schuler's memo, of course, he's not here, as mandated by the state of Michigan, we seem to get those a lot. Each Act 51 local community is required to adopt a road warranty program. Doesn't appear that we have a whole lot of options here. One of those things that voting no probably doesn't do us a whole lot of good anyway, tends to happen maybe more often than we'd like. We are mandated by the state to do certain things, and this is one of those things as well. Councilmember Henry, do you have a question?
Yeah, and just add on to that, you took most of what I was going to say, but we don't even have choice in the wording of the warranty. No. We are so handcuffed on this.
Correct. So we will spend no more time over it. Councilmember Blanchard, you
real
get the
quick
last
comment.
one.
Thank you for addressing the increased percentage. I was guessing about 25%. And I think that's for small municipalities, this is going to be very punitive and without any substantial gain from it. So I think it would hurt us more if we do this and if we didn't do it in most cases. So thank you.
If we had the choice.
Yeah.
Yes. But unfortunately, we do not. So there's no point in belaboring fighting this, so Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on R2319?
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. And for the same kind of fun, would you please read item number 10 on tonight's agenda?
Resolution number R-24-19, matter of approving a resolution to implement a local pavement warranty program.
Is there a motion to approve R2419?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilmember Stedman with support from Councilmember Blanchard. Do it again. Let's do the dance.
Mr. Mayor, really our previous discussion covered this quite well. Again, this is all, the process here is mandated by the state. One resolution just wasn't enough for them, so one is to adopt, the other one is to implement, as the title says. So,
I will save everybody the time unless there are additional changes or questions or comments on this. Thank you, Mr. Alex, for standing up there to discuss both of these with us. But without any further delay, Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on R2419?
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. Ms. Harold, would you please read item number 11 on tonight's agenda?
Motion number M-78-19, matter of authorizing the purchase of an ArcGIS desktop advanced license for $9,010 from account number 101-755-986-000 computer software.
Is there a motion to approve M7819?
So moved. Popular.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem, supported by Councilmember Blanchard and everybody else. Mr. Baumgart.
Mr. Mayor, our Chief Innovation Officer unfortunately was not able to attend this evening. He's actually, we sent him to a conference to get even smarter than he already is. But he did provide to the council a very complete memo outlining the need and some of the reasons why we were making this request of you this evening. Primarily, we have gotten by up to this point on a single license that has been shared by members of our Department of Public Works, as well as through the GIS team that we work with through our city's engineer. Now that we've added additional staff capacity and our community development director, we're finding that there's too many people trying to use the same license at this point, and it's making each of the individual users less productive as they wait for their opportunity. But it's such a great tool that we decided to come to council and ask for the ability to expand our use, make sure that everybody can continue to do really good work with this particular tool. We did go through the state My Deal contract, so we know that we're getting a very good price from this. Despite the number value itself, it's just, this is the best price you can get per the state contract. So I know it does seem some costly, but this is the type of tool that allows us, you've already seen some of the improvements and just our ability to tell stories, specifically and most recently the marijuana conversation that we've been having, the maps reflected on the website that really clarify tons of text into very easily to read and very easy to read maps. That's the kind of thing that we're able to do through ArcGIS. The space really seems to be unlimited here on what we could be able to do, and it also interacts well with the county's offerings. So we can hit this from two different ends. It's not just what we have, the ability that we have here based on the desktop version that we're applying here, but we also get to then get the enhanced benefit of Oakland County's offerings as well.
Despite the cost, this seems like a good problem to have.
It is.
Being able to continue to leverage ArcGIS and make sure that we have access to it for all the folks that need it and can work on it at the same time to continue the good things that you've mentioned. Councilmember Blanchard, anything on this? I figured you might have a comment.
Of course.
Sure.
I think it's a good thing that we're using ArcGIS. There's many things we can do with it, and the second license is important because we've also got other plans yet for public safety on some applications over there for quick response location of hazardous materials and things like that. So it's a great thing to have happen.
Excellent. Mayor Pro Tem?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. I do also support this. I think this is better than the other idea we were kicking around. We're actually going to borrow a concept from the library and have like a license checkout, and then if you're overdue, then you owe a nickel for every hour, so you're holding somebody else up from using the license. So I think this is a far better way of leveraging our resources, and this actually is a very good price for every licenses of this caliber. It's a very specialty type of product. It's not the kind of thing that you'd buy for just casual use around the house or something. So this is it's a great price for a really great product.
Thank you. Additional questions? Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah, I'm also very excited. These are very excellent tools with a lot of utility. One question I had for Mr. Liska was the kind of things we can use this, and some of the things that we've been outsourcing and paying for in the past, we may now be able to do in-house, and it is possible this could even pay for itself despite the large price tag.
Thank you. I have every confidence that Stan and the rest of the team, and Derek and Sean and Aaron, everybody else who's able to use this will certainly make it well worth it. Do you have any comments? No? Just good? Okay. All right, perfect. Seeing no additional comments, Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on M7819?
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennon?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. We now move on to item number 12 on tonight's agenda.
Motion number M-79-19, matter of authorizing the city manager to sign the application for additional service credit purchase for Matt Church, approving 2 years of additional service credit. This service credit purchase is allowed by the City of Berkley Merit System of Human Resource Management, Section 1001.08, and meets all of the requirements of the MERS plan document, which would allow for this service credit purchase.
Is there a motion to approve M7919?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Gavin with support from Councilmember Hennon. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we've discussed and similar requests of the past, the merit system, it's adopted by City Council that outlines employment aspects of working for the City of Berkley, already does provide for this. So the approval is sort of given in advance by including it in the merit system document. MERS does require individual authorizations from the local governing body, in this case the City Council, in order to move forward on individual cases. So sort of a dual approval of the council, if you will. In your packet is outlined not only the MERS document itself, it includes a memo from the finance director outlining our sort of giving some context on this particular request, and then also is a page from the merit system itself showing where this has been an adopted process already in place with for Berkley employees.
Any questions or comments on the item that is before us? Seeing none, it certainly makes sense. It is part of the contract. I hope it doesn't mean we lose somebody 2 years earlier than I'd like to.
Oh, it better not.
As long as that is clear. Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on M7919?
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennon?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. M7919 has been approved. We now move on to item 13 on our agenda.
Ordinance number O-09-19, matter of considering the first reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Berkley, Michigan to amend Article 7, or 12.
That was a lot of numbers just then.
We'll go with 12.
12, residential grading and drainage standards to Chapter 26, buildings and building regulations of the City of Berkley Code of Ordinances to establish standards for residential grading and drainage and to prescribe a penalty for violations.
Is there a motion to approve O0919?
Motion to approve.
Support.
It's approved by Councilmember Blanchard with support from Mayor Pro Tem Baker. Mr. Baumgarten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking back, as you know, we just updated our residential grading standards a couple months ago. We went through a pretty stringent process as far as what we wanted our objectives to be, what we wanted the outcomes to be on this particular item. We now have a couple of months under our belt. Essentially, we have a good long development season here because of the weather in Michigan under our belts. So we've after that program, we sat down, we talked about what worked and what didn't, and where we wanted to make some improvements in order to sort of sidestep some of the issues that we've had so far in application slowdowns, clarifying what small projects actually look like to us, clarifying our stance on things like accessory structures, which became a large issue for just homeowners who were applying to do something different with their garage. All of these things we were keeping tabs of as we went along. We were taking feedback from users, from applicants, from the city's engineers, from our building official, even our frontline staff, and some of the feedback and comments that they were getting from applicants as well. Took all of that and tried to solve as many of those problems through an ordinance amendment as humanly possible, which is what brought this document before you today. So it was chiefly authored by our Community Development Director, who is certainly available to answer any questions. But again, I think this should be a little bit closer to our normal practice. Instead of passing an ordinance and figuring out what works and then not addressing it, thanks to the leadership from our Community Development Director now, she was really our pusher to say, okay, there's things that we know about here that absolutely need to be corrected by a text. And that's the process that yielded this for you today.
Mr. Director?
Good evening. Yeah, just to kind of go over some of the changes that we made that Mr. Baumgarten has already stated. The ordinance was passed, and after a couple of months of seeing the projects that were coming through and seeing how the process wasn't as fluid as we would have liked, and some of the regulations that had been required by not only the single-family residential construction, but especially for the accessory structures, additions or garages, we felt that we needed to clarify not only the requirements that the applicants, contractors, surveyors needed to provide to the building department, but also, as Mr. Baumgarten said, what constitutes a small project. So I have included a draft ordinance. And there are a number of changes here, specifically to the contents that will be required on the grading plan, and how that those are scaled. We feel that these changes will allow better clarification for the surveyors. During the course of the last month, I've spoken with many surveyors, a couple of engineers and architects about what we had been requiring, and some of them were very confused as to what was written here. So I've taken the time to hear what they were saying and tried to modify them while still maintaining the intent of what we were trying to do originally. So this will still require the applicant to provide existing and proposed grades for single-family residential or the accessory structures as they are required. The finished grade, the finished floor elevations, locations of all elevations and utilities, drainage arrows of where all the stormwater runoff is proposed to be, sidewalks, driveways, soil erosion and sedimentation control. The direction of the roof downspouts was something that we had encountered many times in our plan, so we made sure to include that. Locations of the existing trees and the like. Two things that we did eliminate that I wanted to specifically call out were the calculations that estimate the annual amount of rainwater and frequency of runoff for existing structures or a vacant parcel. This was something that I had discussed with a couple of surveyors, and they were unsure of how we wanted, what we were asking for that. The city of Berkeley is generally on the smaller side, so there isn't going to be any a large differentiation between the rainfall in the northwest corner as in the southeast corner. So we feel fairly confident that eliminating a calculation of that type of frequency of rainfall is kind of unnecessarily burdensome, especially when many of them didn't know how to calculate that or where we were getting that requirement, and we couldn't defend it in that way. For an as-built drawing is when the project is completed, we are still requiring an as-built drawing. The one thing that we did change here is that we are allowing for temporary certificates of occupancy to be issued at the determination of the building official. This will come with the caveat that the permit holder must submit a bond in the sum of $1,000. This is meant to almost deter most contractors from relying on that temporary certificate of occupancy. We want them to get their final as much as they can, but we do understand that there are certain situations due to inclement weather or what have you that may require them to they won't be able to get their final grading certificate at the completion of their construction project. And we certainly don't want to hold up any property owners or homeowners from moving into their home just because they can't get their grading plan. And we certainly don't want to hold up any point of sale. The one that we added here was subsection D was the accessory structures. Now we broke this down into 3 separate sections. Pertaining to attached structures, and that's any of your additions. The ones that do not exceed a certain amount of square footage would not require the full grading plan, provided that the elevations and the grade are not changing, and a property owner must sign an agreement or an affidavit that they will address any grading issues or changes and would not alter existing grades or create any additional stormwater runoff. The proposed attached structures that do exceed the 300 square feet would then be required to submit a grading plan. Your detached structures such as garages or sheds, we have included 3 separate determinations on what their process would be in order to get their permits. If they are merely replacing an existing structure and are not going to change grade or elevation, a full grading plan would not be required, provided that they state that the elevation would stay the same, there's no change in grade, and they would sign an affidavit to that extent. And the building department would provide that. If they're going to replace the structure and they will then alter the grade, which we have heard from a lot of our contractors and homeowners that the reason that they are removing the structure and then building a new one is because there's flooding issues. And they want to raise either the back or the front or what have you in order to eliminate that type of flooding. So we would allow that and without requiring a grading plan, provided that they demonstrate how the change in the grade and elevation would not cause any flooding or drainage on site. They would sign an affidavit to the fact that they would not be increasing that stormwater runoff and it would not have a negative impact on the adjacent property owners. And they would have to install some sort of stormwater management device of relief, such as a French drain, catch basin, pop-up, or other type of devices that would eliminate the existing flooding. If they don't want to take that choice, then they can submit for a grading plan. But we feel this gives the property owner the option of how they want to work with the requirements of mitigating any stormwater runoff. We've also addressed swimming pools. That wasn't something that was discussed in the previous ordinance. So this is additional text. In-ground swimming pools and permanent above-ground pools will have to submit to a grading plan, but the temporary seasonal above swimming pools that aren't going to alter the grade and are just kind of like the inflatable ones or the ones you buy at Target, those don't have to go through any significant grading plan. And then subsection F was the small projects. We've changed that to be the exceptions. No grading plan would be required for the landscaping, farming, or garden or other similar land improvement projects of this type of minor nature, provided that they are measured less than 1 foot in height and grade. Anything higher than 1 foot in grade would be reviewed by the building official to determine if a formal review would be required. We do not require a permit for berming, gardening, or landscaping. However, we added this provision in there just so that we had some coverage in case there were some issues with people building up berms that were then blocking stormwater runoff from the adjacent properties. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, well, thank you
Yes.
for giving us a pretty thorough explanation of the changes, but the way that you started, I think, was perhaps the most important comment was there was confusion. We don't want confusion about our code. That is probably the last thing that we want confusion about. There should not be any ambiguity there. So being able to, even though this was a May of 2019 thing, being able to go back and get some feedback, and also once you've come aboard with your own expertise and experience, be able to reimagine and recraft this ordinance so that, one, it obviously serves the intended purpose for why it came up in the first place, but so that it is as clear as mud to those who are. That was almost a Mayor Pro Tem pun there. I didn't mean it like that, but I worked it in there. To the folks that are actually doing the work, so that it makes sense, and it's not punitive in any way. There's a reason that we're doing this. It's important for our community with the type of development that we see. So I certainly appreciate the time and the thoroughness that you put into going through this and making the changes that you went over just a few minutes ago. Questions for our director? Councilmember Hennon.
First, I wanted to echo the same thing. I'm really appreciative if we find things, no matter how long they've been, if they're not working out, bring them to our attention. We're not going to be aware of all of them, but, if something needs changed, want to make sure we do what will work for the community. Section B, we reduced it down from 100 feet to 25 feet, and I'm okay with that. What I'm wanting to check on is, we had one resident that suggested to us that, 100 feet, you're getting across the street, and you don't need that. With the 25 feet limit, are we now, we're not going to be catching those properties across the street?
Right, yeah. I mean, with the way the stormwater would be going, I don't see any reason why we would need to capture all of the properties that are all the way across the street. The water isn't going to go from one property down to the street and then up again. At least we shouldn't ever again. But the 100 feet requirement that it was going halfway down the block, especially when you have, properties that are 35 feet, 40 feet. We don't need, two properties on either side. That doesn't serve enough of that doesn't serve a purpose. So we reduced it to 25 just so we could see where the grades were on the property line. We could see the elevations of the house and the grade at the immediate adjacent property, and we feel that will capture what we need to.
Great. And then B1, it talks about grade change points.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? I'm not sure what that means.
It just means where the grade is changing. So if it goes from, say, 945 feet to 942 feet, we want to see where those are changing, even though at the corner of the property line or at the house, it's not there. We want to see where the grade is moving and where the grade is changing, so we know where the water is supposed to be flowing.
And this is for the finished grade, right?
It would be for both.
For both, okay, both before and after. Then finally, B6 was prevent ponding of water on the property. One strategy I set up on my own house is temporarily ponding the water, and then, over a couple of hours it infiltrates out. That's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about if it would permanently, be sitting there.
Yeah, the intent is, if that's something that you want to do by design, and we can fiddle with the wording a little bit there, but the intent is not to negatively impact any adjacent property owners, or so that you have ponding of water that lasts for 3 or 4 days. We certainly don't want to create, natural habitats in people's backyards.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, Councilmember Blanchard?
Just a quick comment. I think there's a typo in that same section B contents. It says grading plan shall depict 1/2 foot. There's the word foot is in there twice. It hasn't been removed a second time, so that just.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to drive the point home.
Oh. It worked.
Councilmember Gavin?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick question about the temporary certificates of occupancy. It's a one-time deal, correct? I mean, they can do one temporary certificate, or can it be renewed, or how would that work?
Well, the way we have it proposed is that they would expire within 6 months. So unless there is extenuating circumstances, I would not recommend any kind of renewal or extension. But that's something that I wouldn't want to negate right off the bat.
Okay.
So it would have to be something that we would discuss internally with the building official, with myself, even with city staff, the city manager, to make sure that whatever the case is and what the applicant is proposing, that there is a cutoff, there's a deadline, there's some sort of process, that we're not just, yeah, sure, whatever.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
we want
Thank
to
you.
make sure that we're on top.
Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, primarily the scenario we wanted to avoid here is that the home is structurally complete, except for the grading, but a homeowner cannot take possession of it. So you have a structure that sits vacant during the winter where the potential for things to go wrong is very high.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mostly just comments to express appreciation for staying on top of listening to the residents and proposing these adjustments for us tonight. They all seem to make a lot of sense. Some of them are a little technical, but I think that's what this is intended to do. In fact, help clarify the ways the technicalities are prescribed. And as the mayor pointed out, the core intent of the original ordinance remains intact. And if anything, this expands on it and makes it stronger. So I celebrate that and want to thank you. It's a great, solid foot forward for you here with the community. And I think we have somebody from the audience who wants to
Yes,
speak too.
sure. Come on up to the microphone, please. State your name.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Hi. Good evening. Hi, my name's Eric Steidet, 2050 Edgewood, a new resident of Berkley. I was caught. I'd like to thank the city manager and planner for making some amendments. I had recently done a home remodel on Edgewood, and the last project was the garage. So we were caught in sort of the snafu of the existing ordinance, which just maybe my quick commentary on it was, as trying to follow the original ordinance, not possible. So very tough. And I was dealing with contractors that had been in business for 40 some years. So it was very, very problematic. Maybe one commentary on the whole grading plan is, and even working with the building department a little bit, asking a couple questions, is having companies that do this type of business, because even finding, sort of an individual who, so I was asked to get a grading plan. I'm like, who do I talk to about a grading plan? And that was kind of like having companies that know let's say, the Berkley process and the Berkley ordinance, that I could just call up and say, hey, I need a grading plan over here, would be helpful to an individual citizen. I'm not a civil engineer or know where civil engineers or architects or those types of things. That would be my one commentary on that. But I do thank the city for making the adjustments that will hopefully help finish the project.
Thank you. Thank you for waiting out the evening as well to make those comments. Seeing no additional questions or comments. Oh, sure. Oh.
Due to the number of projects that we do have, especially the ones that have been submitted, and we told them that we were coming here this evening to discuss, and I know they're anxious to get their projects done before the snow flies or the frost falls. Is there some sort of administrative leeway we could have? I know we're going to be coming back here for the second reading. Is there something we can do to offer to the homeowners, the contractors in the meantime?
Which way do we want to go?
Mr.
Attorney? Perfect.
Technically, the ordinance won't go into effect until second reading, and actually 30 days after second reading. We did discuss this a little bit internally, and the thought was, if council has no objection to it, I think the city manager could exercise administrative discretion and start following these guidelines as far as the information that would be submitted, of course pending the council's vote on it tonight. But it would seem to be a reasonable thing to do in this instance. We would not be able to, for instance, enforce any penalties associated with the new requirements until the ordinance is actually in effect.
Okay. Does council have any issue with that? Administrative approval at this point?
The one avenue I want to leave open is that the time period with the second reading, if we do have people that come with ideas, with things we haven't thought of, that maybe we do need to make an adjustment. So I do want to give administration discretion to allowing these projects to start moving forward, but to keep in mind that we might have some more feedback that we find valuable and want to make a change at the second reading.
And we can do that by keeping the second
Yes,
reading off of the consent
absolutely.
agenda and having a conversation. Okay, everybody good? Okay, got some more things we have to motor through tonight. Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on 00919?
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennan.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Ms. Harold, would you please read item number 14 on tonight's agenda?
Resolution number R-25-19, matter of amending Section 13 of the City Council Rules and Order of Procedure.
Is there a motion to approve R-2519?
Motion to approve.
Support. Motion approved from Mayor Pro Tem, support from Councilmember Gavin. Mr. Attorney, we are looking at our rules and order of procedure.
Yes, my understanding what's being proposed tonight, we have our council rules of procedure, which we adopt yearly, at least we're supposed to adopt yearly. There was, I think, a couple of years where maybe it got overlooked. And of course, I think the last go-round earlier this year, council actually did make a few changes, some tweaks, and some more substantive things. What is being proposed tonight is a further amendment to the council rules, and specifically to section 11 of those rules, or excuse me, section 13, which is the Code of Ethics for Government Service. Just to clarify, we're talking about the council rules of procedure. We're not talking about the ethics ordinance, which is a separate animal. And in that Code of Ethics section, you already have 10 different things that any person in government service should do, and there is an additional item that is being posed here to be added that I can read unless the sponsor of the amendment prefers to read it.
I'd be glad to add some commentary as well, yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, to pick up where you just left off, the proposed language, and I'll take a step back and describe a little bit more about how we got here and things like that. The proposed language is an additional item into our Code of Ethics. There's a handsome preamble there, but it starts with basically, any person in government service should, and then this would continue, express themselves in both spoken and written communications in a manner becoming of a City of Berkeley official or representative, and maintain a constructive tone that may not reasonably be construed as demeaning, harassing, accusatory, untruthful, or disrespectful. So if I can just elaborate on some of the rationale for this. Over the summer, I had made a few comments at the close of our council meetings pertaining to the contrast in civility that I've noticed, my family and I, as we walk around in the neighborhoods and talk with our fellow residents and folks on the out and about in the town, and some of the things that we encounter in other forums, online and social media and things like that. There's such a contrast there that it almost seems like there's two Berkeleys out there. And so my thought here with opening this, taking this initial step, is simply to reaffirm and declare what we all believe to be true, that we should embody what the preamble talks about. We should, the strength and value of the ethics is found in their capacity to inspire commitment to a higher moral standard than law or custom. By doing so, public servants inspire and justify confidence and faith in government. And some of that may have eroded a little along the way. And so I think by simply just reaffirming that this is how we choose to interact with our fellow neighbors and residents and folks, I think is a reasonable, very small step forward. I qualify that as a reasonable, very small step forward because many of our neighboring communities have far stronger mechanisms in place to look at the notion of ethics in general and civility in particular. There's a little bit of research into what some of our neighboring communities have in terms of a formal ethics ordinance, formal ethics review board, those types of things as another avenue that I'm hoping that we could consider pursuing in the future. This is simply just to update our code of conduct, a code of ethics, which is not legally enforceable, but it's something that we can morally strive for.
Thank you. So when this conversation started, those of you recall, and I will not belabor this point because we have a sunset at 10 o'clock tonight, but last November, this is no secret, we are coming up to election season right now, and there's a reason that this is happening. Last November in the city was disappointing, toxic, unnecessary, and some of the comments that were made to each other as residents, those wounds still have not healed. There is still a little bit of a divide in the community from bond issue that happened last November, and I don't know why it got to the point where it was just so ugly. I have no issues with disagreements. The result of the vote isn't what's important. But after the vote, regardless, we have to move on as a community. Whether things go up or down, whoever gets elected, none of that is ultimately going to matter. What's going to matter is how we move on as a community after those things. And as elected officials, it's our job to lead not only the city in terms of the decisions that we make, but also how we carry ourselves, whether we're talking to residents in public, at a local restaurant, at a shop, online, certainly, which is probably the more pervasive place, because online it's a little easier to say things that you might not say to somebody's face, and I completely understand that. But I want us to hold ourselves to a higher standard. Combine that with what's happening on a national level and trickling down. There is a bit of distrust, might not be the right word, but there is some discontent among some elected officials at a federal level and trickling down into the state level. And for us, as the city of Berkeley, I want us to continue to lead by example. And if that means holding ourselves to higher ethics, and it's not that we're out here violating these things, but I ultimately want not only this to apply to council, I want it to be an ordinance, and I want it to apply to folks who volunteer their service as well to boards or commissions, which we currently do have. But it's basically unenforceable at this point, and taking some cues from some of our neighbors just to make sure that, look, the residents elect these members of council, and we need to certainly do our best to uphold that vote and that faith and that confidence that they've put in us, and we need to be leaders. And that is what started this conversation. Now today, we're looking at a relatively minor addendum to our code, to our standard of conduct, but hopefully we will be able to move this along further. And again, I'm not saying you can't disagree. I have no issues with people disagreeing. That's how our country was founded. That's how our city will continue to, you get differing viewpoints. You see other perspectives that you haven't seen. But somewhere along the way, disagreeing became, I need to attack this person because they don't agree with me, so they're X, Y, and Z. And that is extremely unfortunate. And I'm not trying to be the morality police, but if we as council members can hopefully set the standard for how we conduct and interact with residents, whether it's in public or online or any of the above, hopefully that we'll be able to permeate that to the way that our residents communicate and interact with each other as well. Any other questions, or not questions, but I guess comments more often than that? Yes.
I have a comment. And to piggyback on what you just said, Your Honor, I think that it also, it should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think that everyone up here in these chairs needs to be held to that same standard when interacting with each other, interacting with our city manager, our city employees, anybody in any of our departments, whether in person or online. I think that we need to give each other the respect that we're due as professionals and as human beings. So yes, certainly in our interactions with residents, but I think that
We can't forget about the interactions that we have here in the city offices. We are all on the same team. We don't always agree on things, but I think it's important to lead by example and to engage in civil discourse with respect to each other. Thank you.
Councilmember Hennan?
Yeah, and I want to say I'm okay with this language, but I also want to be clear, that I don't think this should be an excuse to stifle open discussion.
Certainly
Some
not.
people, no matter how you approach them, they're going to take any disagreement as a personal attack. You alluded a little bit to that. Some people, when you hold them accountable for their behavior, they're going to call it harassment. And even among us, to for example, to talk about the relative merits of candidates for an appointment, it's not shameful. It's just part of being open and transparent, and we have to be willing to have those hard discussions. So, we can act respectfully, and we can do the best we can. The simple fact is we aren't going to be able to please everybody. When we put ourselves on the front lines, we're all going to be accused of all sorts of things. So, but, with that said, I think it's still important that we're engaged in the community and educating and listening and learning.
Certainly. Any additional comments on this? Would you like to comment on this? Certainly.
Charles Terrell from Berkeley. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to take your comment just a little bit further.
Okay.
It says here, any person in government service should. Change that to every person in government service must. Make it a positive obligation and make it for everyone, not anyone.
I have absolutely zero problem with that.
I certainly like making it stronger and more clear. I do think that we could more formally do that, because the must is interesting, right? I think if we were to proceed to put an actual ordinance and an ethics review board in place, that would be the reinforcement mechanism that a must would imply right now.
Right, and must would do it, and every, not any. So it applies to everyone.
Everybody across the board. I like where your head's at. That is certainly our intent, to make sure that this does apply to everybody, and it has force. And there is a review board, and there will be something that's out of our hands. Okay, thank you. Any additional? Seeing no additional questions or comments, Ms. Harrell, would you please call a roll on R2519?
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennan?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. Ms. Harrell, would you please read item 15 on tonight's agenda?
Ordinance number O-10-19, matter of considering the first reading of an amendment to the zoning ordinance of the City Council of the City of Berkley, Michigan, to conditionally rezone property described as Lot 114 of Berkley School Park subdivision from Parking District to Single Family Residential District R-1D.
Is there a motion to approve O0 or O1019?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilmember Stedman.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Dean. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A little bit of background on this particular project. This is the applicant that has come before this body as well as the Planning Commission in the past. Previously, they were requesting the full rezoning of the entirety of the property. This time, they are coming forth with a different request. What they are intending to do is actually split the lot. The southern 40 by 130 would be rezoned to a residential property. The northern portion would actually be conveyed to the city one way or the other through purchase or donation. Essentially, that would complete a rectangle that we would want to then move forward with approaching other property owners and creating a parking bay that would stretch basically road to road behind some of the parcels we've been discussing this evening, one of which is the gatekeeper's property. The other one is the church that was mentioned by the applicant, and the third is is currently operating as a daycare center. Understanding that there is a need for publicly provided parking in the West 12-mile district, this is a couple other steps ahead of us, but this would be the first in trying to see if there's a viable option for creating just that, and that would be boxing that out, creating a parking area that is publicly provided so that it's not controlled by any one of the property owners. Right now, you have sort of a hodgepodge system where you've got the former gatekeeper's property has been purchased with a little bit of parking behind there. It has 40 feet of depth on the parking parcel. You can't utilize but half of a 40-foot depth parking area because you would need. There's no way to make it to where you've got more than just utilizing 20 feet at a time. It's one of the reasons why Dahl Hospital had elected to use that space to showcase some of its playground equipment that it also sold in the past. The next, or the eastern portion of it, there's a little parking bay there. They only have the northern 20 feet that was sold as part of the middle section of what formerly used to be Dahl Hospital, and then it directly abuts the northern the property in question here. So you can kind of get through that description out and you kind of start to get a visual on what that rectangle will look like. The property was, the subject parcel was zoned parking way back. I think we determined it was in 1986. And with the foresight of saying that, yes, there's a parking issue in that area. I don't think that's a disputable fact in this matter. But with the potential that someday down the road, when that property changes hands, there's a potential to expand parking and hopefully publicly provided parking to that area. It was mentioned earlier by a resident who came to the microphone mentioning that there's actually 3 concurrent development opportunities all running simultaneously, not just the Green Lantern, not just gatekeepers, but also the what is now being utilized as a church as well. So certainly parking issues are nowhere new to this area, but we could see, as more development happens in the West 12 area, we could see a greater need for parking moving forward. So from a process standpoint, the applicant came back before the Planning Commission. Planning Commission heard the facts of the case. They held the required public hearing on it and made a recommendation on a, was it 5-2? 6-2, sorry. A 6-2 decision to recommend to approve this. But that is just that. It's a recommendation, and ultimately it comes before this body. Mr. Mayor, we do have the applicant here.
Yes, I think we are all familiar with this property from the first time we discussed this, and now we're back again. Would you like to say something before we deliberate that wasn't already said?
I mean, not too much. I mean, I think we're looking at, I think we had discussed that it would be somewhere around 60 spots, and I think I counted off there's like 35 right now. So it would be a substantial increase, you know, in the parking in that area. That was just kind of my rough numbers, and like what we counted, don't hold me to that. I mean, I don't do anything commercial really, you know, it's all residential that I do. But I think it would be a good first step moving forward for the parking. And I know a lot of business owners, I think a lot of those businesses would, in terms of parking, the daycare isn't going to have the same parking hours as gatekeepers, you know, and the crossover is going to be really good if it did become a municipal lot. I don't know with the owners, the property owners, I have not had a chance to speak with any of them. Well, actually, I have spoke with Green Lantern, and those guys were very interested, you know, if that did become parking, because one of the issues will be overflow, you know, in parking and where they park. And if it was a municipal lot, you know, number one, if you drive back there, there was something posted on one of the residents' forums where it was just a mess over in that neighborhood, you know, with what was going on in development. It would be cleaned up and maintained. It is something that I feel is essential in that area, though, for parking. And, you know, you guys are short on parking. The existing structure would not conform.
Did you say we are short on parking?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that necessarily is going to help you here.
Well, I mean.
So before you continue, thank you, one, for being here tonight, waiting as well to be able to have this conversation. So our issue, we've heard the Planning Commission, they recommended approval of this.
Actually, Your Honor, if I may, I was just reviewing the notes in the packet. There was a highlighted portion.
Was that from the last meeting?
That was
from the first. That was the first one.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure we were aware of the history of it.
Yes, that was the first one.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
So what we are looking at here is we are either rezoning part of the parcel to single family, or we are keeping it, or the other option is it remains zoned parking. As we mentioned, at some point in the 80s, with the foresight and what drove our vote. Last time this was in front of us was based on the future uses before we spoke of the number of uses that are going in right now into this area as it relates to parking. So as a council, we need to decide, is some parking, or do we want this to essentially remain all parking, and then we would have some additional steps that would need to take place after that. But that needs to be the first part of this conversation, because if we're good with splitting the parcel, then that is our answer. But if we are not, then after that's going to facilitate us moving in a different direction. So, feedback from council on what the goal is for this property. Councilmember Blanchard?
Thank you, Your Honor. Looking at this property, I think if we take that 20 feet, incorporated that into the strip down there, I think something we'll be able to accomplish and be able to afford. If we try and wait or get other additional properties, I think we're going to come up to a point where it's going to cost us more money than we have available for things like this, and it will delay parking in the west 12-mile area for quite a while.
Do we need additional properties before we can make this parking? We don't have the property, but if...
Well, if we wanted to, I mean, we've got, if we do this, we've got the 40-foot, the strip all the way down through there, at which point we could relocate the alley and make effective parking in there. If we choose not to do that, or we choose to go enforce the fact that his property is parking, I don't think he's going to donate it to us. And we're going to come up with some money, and we're going to have to purchase property to make additional parking. This is one way that we can do it reasonably quickly, I believe, and at a reasonable cost.
Okay, thank you. Additional feedback on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to clarify from a process standpoint, this would be our first step. We have yet to get written agreements from the corresponding property owners that we would need to pull this off. So I just want to make sure that's clarified.
Right. But we got to take one step. We got to move.
Additional thoughts and feedback, Councilmember Hennon?
Yeah, so originally when this idea with the conditional rezoning was floated, I was supportive of it, that everybody gets something, we get a chance to get more parking, he gets a new house, but, as I looked at it more, I'm very patient. I'm looking at very long time horizons here, and I think the intent of the original 1986 rezoning was the correct case. As Mr. Siebel earlier tonight pointed out, there is a lot of development going on there. Green Lantern, Gamekeeper Games, they're going to have very similar hours and parking demands. There's a lot of opportunity in this area, but with that there's going to be a lot of increased parking demand. Then on top of that, even if this does go through and it becomes a municipal lot with our current parking regulations that businesses within 500 feet of municipal parking have their parking requirements waived, that now will really exacerbate the situation here, I think. So even if council disagrees with me and goes forward with this, I think we need to look at that ordinance. I think it has good intentions, but I think it has the potential of causing a lot of problems. And then finally, if we do find, conditions change in the future and we have more parking spaces than we need, you can always go back to, converting to green space, pocket parks, buffers between the residents, but we can't go the other way if we don't have the space to do it.
Okay. Other comments? Anybody else have comments on this? Mayor Pro Tem?
Sure, thank you. And I apologize I jumped in a little soon on that one. Likewise, my position hasn't really shifted since the last time this came before us, and is referring back to the initial Planning Commission recommendation and some of the additional thoughts since then. I still think the original intent of that parcel as zoned makes sense. I know especially again making the growth opportunities that we see coming in that part of town more evident. The need for parking is going to increase, and if not, then of course we can do some of the suggestions, the placemaking initiatives to reactivate that space in new ways. So I'm comfortable with the previous position and keeping it the way it is.
Thank you. Any other comments before we So it is unfortunate, at least in my opinion, that the house that you have is zoned parking and not single-family residential. But that fact alone does not give me enough concern to want to rezone any of this to single-family, because I do see a clear need, and the fact that we are going to need parking, especially if we're looking at redevelopment right now. There's only going to be more development, I'm assuming, in the future. That's why I voted it last time, and for me, it hasn't changed. I do appreciate the thought of being able to compromise, but I worry that that is only going to be one step that is not going to help us solve a problem. It's going to maybe kind of put a temporary bandage over what potentially could be a much larger cut that's going to require something. The motion that we have on the table right now is to approve this. That is what was moved and seconded. So everybody is aware that is to rezone the property to single-family residential. Everybody clear on that? Ms. Harold, will you please call the roll on ordinance 1019, please?
Gavin?
No.
Hennan?
No.
Stedman?
No.
Baker?
No.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
No.
Turbrack?
No. I am sorry. Ms. Harold, would you please read our next item on tonight's agenda?
Resolution number R-26-19, matter of authorizing the budget amendment of fiscal year 2019-2020 as presented.
Is there a motion to approve R-2619?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilmember Hennan with support from Councilmember Stedman. Mr. Baumgarten.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be representing this item tonight. Mark Pollack, unfortunately, was not able to be here for this topic. As you'll note from his memo, the budget amendments for this particular quarter are broken into two broad categories. One is carryovers on capital improvement projects, and the other one is personnel updates. Starting with the capital improvements carryovers, this is not an uncommon item for us from year to year. We always try to do as much as we can in every given fiscal year. Sometimes we're able to finish them prior to the end of the fiscal. Sometimes we are not. And so as has been our practice, we roll those over instead of, we don't ever give up on the project. We roll those over and we say, we'll continue down the path of progress. And so you'll see those leaving the previous budget year as will be reflected by the audit results being presented in a couple months. And then you'll see them now be reflected in this budget year as we continue to try to pull those off and get those much needed capital improvements in place. Mr. Finance Director has noted the impacts on the budget. We were anticipating to be using our well-saved monies for these investments. That will still be the plan. We just will be utilizing more of our fund balance in this fiscal year and then saving some actually in the last fiscal year. Ultimately, we end up with a 40% fund balance reserve, which is right in line with where the council's felt very comfortable. And monetarily, that is just a hair under $5 million. So the city remains in a very, very secure fiscal position moving forward. And as you remember, in our next budget year projections, we actually would begin the process of adding to that fund balance, especially in the general fund again, so that we may utilize more capital projects and continue to improve our community. The second portion of it is divided into personnel updates. Personnel is primarily purview of the city manager's office. We've made some moves over the last couple of months that I think will yield better results and a better service to our residents. With that comes budget requests to reallocate some monies, the discontinuation of the deputy city manager position, the reallocation of those former duties, the updates to our communications personnel, as well as being able to add some individuals in the realm of public safety. With some of our enforcement folks, we're making some moves, again, shifting what used to be community development, fire marshal, fire services over to our fire investigations. which ends up in Public Safety Administration. Again, I mentioned communications, some updates in information technology. As you recall in previous conversations and in our budget workshops, we had talked about some additional support, staff support for our Chief Innovation Officer, trying to determine exactly where that need lies, and also trying to get some benefit for the future generation of those that want to serve in that same capacity. Stan has taken on an intern. That intern, it's a paid internship for this young man. And again, he's learning from one of the best in the industry, and hopefully we make a public servant out of him before the end of his internship. And then also we've got some updates to planning as well, related to our community development director. So that's a quick overview. The detail is certainly in your packet and down to the penny in many, many cases. But that is a broad overview of what's being proposed on this quarter's budget amendments.
Okay. In lieu of our finance director being here, thank you, Mr. Baumgarten, for going through that. Questions or comments on these quarterly amendments? Again, these are not new. This is just bringing everything together and making sure that the books are correct. Still put us in the strong financial position that we have been in and want to continue to be. Seeing no comments or questions on that, Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll on R2619?
Hennan.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. We have now already reached the communications portion of our meeting. Councilmember Hennan, I believe, is up first, or was there one off?
I have Stedman.
I was off one. Okay. Councilmember Stedman, you're up. You have 10 minutes, FYI, as a group.
Right. I'll try to be really quick. Okay, first of all, the library. Don't forget the book sale, October 10th, 11th, and 12th, the used book sale. And I would guess that if you want to donate, this would be the time to do it, so that because prior to that, they're going to have to sort them all. And that will be held in the library, I think he said. Okay. Secondly, the Community Engagement Advisory Committee. Well, we've been trying to get block ambassadors for a long time. We now have 3. So, I mean, we just got one more last week. So that's not going so well. This committee has been working very hard, though, on a communications plan, which is almost completed and will be brought before council. The Beautification Committee is having a fall cleanup. This is going to be on Tuesday, October 20th at 6 o'clock at the Oxford Park Towers Park. So if you're interested in helping clean up that park, be there at 6 o'clock on October 20th. Thank you very much if you decide to come. All right, just some another thing that happened today. As many of you already know, Patrick J's closed today forever. And this is very sad. It's especially sad for my family because 4 of my family members were employed there. 2 of them, it was their main income. My daughter and my granddaughter, Fallon. So it definitely has a family effect. But more importantly, it has a community effect. I think it brings to light, and we heard this presentation on the downtown master plan development. One significant, crucial part of that has got to be keeping businesses here. And one of the only ways that we can keep businesses in our city is if people in our city go to those businesses in our city. And I'm afraid that's not happening enough. People are going outside of the city. It's not to say that you can't, but you please make sure that you frequent our businesses first. This is a small town, and that's the only way we maintain that small town feel, and we continue to be a small town. Berkley businesses are all affected by this. We need to keep that small town feel. So in terms of the closing of Patrick J's, it's going to have a community-wide effect. There's another very large empty building. it's going to be empty for a while until somebody purchases it or decides to develop it or whatever. We're not sure what that's going to be yet. It came as a total shock to my entire family and to every employee there who was notified today that they no longer had a job. So, thank you.
Thank you. That is certainly unfortunate for everybody and for our community. The Mayor Pro Tem has made a motion to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
It's unfortunate, but the Councilmember Gavin seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, you now buy yourselves a few more minutes. We are now no longer bound to our 10 o'clock end rule. Councilmember Blanchard, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to tell everybody that September is Preparedness Month. This is the month that you're supposed to think about what you're going to do to prepare your family, your home, your children, everything, your businesses, for anything that might happen. And I've been sending our communications person preparedness tips, which he's been posting out there. And one of them is, I want to read you, this is thunderstorms and lightning. Lightning is the leading cause of injury and death from weather-related hazards. Although most lightning victims survive, people struck by lightning often report a variety of long-term debilitating symptoms. Thunderstorms are dangerous storms that include lightning and can include powerful winds of 50 miles per hour, create hail, cause flash flooding, and tornadoes. If you're under a thunderstorm warning, find a safe shelter right away. When thunder roars, go indoors. This is something that you need to tell the kids in a lot of cases. On another note, we finished our Irish Fest. Turned out very well. The mayor made a very rousing opening speech. I'd like to thank the volunteers that worked on this. We had 3 groups. The AOH, led by Steve Vanetti, put a lot of effort in to get this going. The American Legion, led by Bill Eisenhower, was very, very active in making sure things were set up and safe. And then Roseanne Nicolai with the chamber people running the kids' events down there to keep the kids busy. So with those 3 groups working hard, it was very successful, and I'd like to thank all of them for their hard work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Great, thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of quick updates here. The Technology Advisory Committee meets just in 2 days' time. I'd like to thank the volunteers on that group and look forward to seeing them in a couple days. And hopefully in that session we'll have an opportunity to meet the new intern that was described, and welcome Mr. Harrison Porter to the team. Looking forward to working with him and seeing what we can do to help shape some additional talent in our community. The Downtown Development Authority has reviewed received resumes for the executive director position, and the interviews will be scheduled in the next few weeks with a recommendation going to the next regularly scheduled DDA board meeting. And for those of you interested in more about what's going on in our downtown and the upcoming events and activities, please visit downtownberkeley.com. To the Historical Committee, we met yesterday, on Sunday as a matter of fact, and out of the many things to talk about, I'd just like to highlight 2+1 here, I think. First, celebration of the partnership with the Berkley School District. They passed a resolution in support of donating and the cornerstone for the Berkley School. So those of you might remember the Berkley School. It was originally built in 1919. And it was originally kindergarten through 12th grade facility. It was later renamed Berkley Elementary, but as most things happen over a certain amount of time, 1980 that made way on the north side of Catalpa, and Berkeley High was, on the south side and all that good stuff. So the cornerstone of that building had been saved all this time. And in conjunction or in conversation between the Historical Committee and the school district, they agreed to send it over to the museum. I won't go inside the museum because it's a big thing of limestone or something crazy like that. It'll be on the outside, so the committee is working closely with Public Works to find the proper place for it, to make sure it can be safe and well lit and not standing in mud and all that kind of stuff. So we're very excited about that, and again, thanks to the partnership with the school district for that. And the second thing is these wonderful new holiday collector mugs are available with the historical museum information on the back. This one is artist's drawing of what's hopefully a very symbolic and popular, recognizable symbol for the holiday season. That one still has some fluid in it, too. Be careful there.
I'm being careful.
Yeah, you're doing great. And so these are available. The first batch is almost out, but a second batch is on order. So if you want to try to get one of these, they're still just $10, as all mugs in the series are. And hopefully you can score one of your own. They make a great holiday gift. New this year will be a similar design in an ornament, a holiday ornament to be displayed and hung in your homes by the chimney with care and those kind of fun things. We don't have one of those yet to display, but it'll be coming soon, so that should be awesome. Again, for a target price of simply $10, and all proceeds go to benefit the museum. And it was Henry James who once said, "3 things in human life are important. The first is to be kind, the second is to be kind, and the third is to be kind." A little earlier, we talked about civility in public discourse and interactions with one another, and it's with sadness that many of us wanted to share these news. So I appreciate the opportunity to share as liaison to the Historical Committee the sad news of the passing of one of our very kind volunteers, Mr. David Milner. Finally succumbed to the cancer he had been battling just yesterday. And so details are still emerging in terms of next steps and things, but I just wanted to let everybody know that he embodied all of the kinds of things that we seek to see in our volunteers. I'll always remember his calm demeanor and his little friendly wink. And he'd send these nice little emails, like very large fonts, that just said, "Hope you have a nice day." Those types of things. It was brilliant and just beautiful. So we'll sincerely miss him. Perhaps there's an opportunity for us to put a resolution together or something to that effect in honor of him and all the great things he's done. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for mentioning that. And speaking of Mr. Milner, certainly will be missed not only in the Historical Committee, but in our community as
Indeed,
well.
indeed.
Thank you. Councilmember Dean?
Thank you. I have one thing from the Parks and Rec Department. Their annual Touch a Truck event is being held on October 5th from 10 a.m. to noon in the arena parking lot. They're going to have DPW vehicles as well as public safety vehicles for the kids to check out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hennan?
Right. A few things. The Zoning Board of Appeals, they met and unanimously approved the variances needed to convert the La Salette School into apartments. Their next step, La Salette Development's next step will be to go before the Planning Commission, and that will likely occur in October. The next meeting of the ZBA, if there's any cases to be heard, will be Monday, October 14th here at City Hall at 7 p.m. On the tree board, we have the numbers from the fall tree sale. There were about 90 new trees ordered, and that's on par with past years. And for those who did order, a reminder that they aren't going to come until November or probably December until the trees are fully dormant, so don't be expecting them right away. The tree board also discussed the city's list of prohibited trees. There's many types of trees that spread easily and rapidly but really don't have any desirable properties, so they're starting to look at how we can manage those. Then they also talked about the memorial trees in the city. We have a lot of those trees that were donated in somebody's memory, but recently we've accidentally, very unfortunately removed some of those, and so we want to start looking at better ways to track that and what steps we can do to prevent that sort of thing in the future. Their next meeting is Monday, October 14th, 7 p.m. at the library. And then finally, I just wanted to comment on the flagpole dedication. All of us were able to attend. That was on 9/11, the new flagpole at the Public Safety Building that Eagle Scout Danny Miller was able to raise over $3,000 for and help direct that project. It was a very moving and a very good ceremony, and his work and all those that helped him, hugely appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gavin.
Thank you, Your Honor. When Planning Commission met, obviously they voted on the conditional rezoning that came before us tonight, and also had discussions on marijuana establishments within the city. and the changing of violations, ordinance violations from misdemeanors to municipal infractions. So no action was taken on either, just discussions at this point. The next meeting will be September 24th so next Tuesday at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers. Environmental Advisory Committee did not meet in July or August, and then we'll convene back here in September on the 26th at 6:30 in the Public Safety Building on the second floor. And then the Coolidge Task Force met as well with discussion on the road diet on Coolidge, water main extension north of 12 Mile, and some of the downtown master plan issues related to Coolidge. So the next meeting will be October 10th, also in the Public Safety Conference Room. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baumgarten?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to do a little bit of bragging, if you'll permit. Recently, Derek Schuler was invited to present for the Michigan Conference of the American Water Works Association. That's the national organization. Mr. Schuler was invited to present on the topic of how we use GIS systems in order to track our water main assets. Over the last several years now, we've been working with HRC. That relationship has yielded a process for managing maintenance and assets, and not only our water pipes, but also our hydrants as well. That system that they've developed right here in Berkley has become a framework for all of HRC, for their different clients, and then now, again, is being presented as a best practice to a national organization. So kudos to Mr. Schuler, to Sean Young, to Stan Liska, everyone that had a hand in making sure that the Berkley way is becoming the national standard. So very, very much a kudos to him. And he round-tripped it in a day and a half, and unironically drove through pouring down rain the entire way. So he got to do both water and sewer that evening. Another item, new faces. By the time we meet again on October the 7th, we'll be joined by our brand new city clerk. We of course miss Annette a great deal, and Gina has done a phenomenal job as our interim. But we'll be welcoming a new face to our team coming up September 23rd. Miss Victoria Mitchell will join us. She's coming from the city of Clawson, where she's done a phenomenal job there, and we are happy to add her to our team. We also have another new face joining us in the communications field, our community engagement officer. That position has been filled now, and we have somebody joining us from City of Auburn Hills, Ms. Tori Mathis. And so we're excited to welcome her to the fold here as well, and look forward to wonderful things from both these new members of the Berkley family. And last item is starting tomorrow, weather permitting, we'll see crews out repainting and restoring parts of our gazebo out front. So it's our front face to the world. It's right in our front yard. So we'll be chipping off some of the cracked and peeling paint that has developed over time, and it'll be getting a fresh new coat just in time for its biggest day of the year, the Holiday Lights Parade. So we're looking forward to that.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any updates or report for council this evening.
Thank you. I have a feeling over the course of the next couple of months we will get to hear from you quite frequently.
Probably more than you care to.
I will not comment on that. Just a few items as well. Most of them have already been mentioned, but it has been a little while since we've met. We had a dream cruise since our last meeting, which was, phenomenal evening and parade in the city. The Dream Cruise Committee, Parks and Rec, Public Safety, DPW, all of the volunteers, everybody that certainly puts in the time to make that event as special as it is and continues to grow every year. We're certainly thankful for all of that. The Irish Fest was mentioned. We had good weather for the Irish Fest. It was nice, dry. It seems to be a little cold and damp on occasion. It was great. And I do also want to mention Danny Miller and the flagpole ceremony. Danny, an Eagle Scout, which is in its own right is very difficult to accomplish, and then choosing a service project that not only had meaning for him, but meaning for the community. And you could tell by the turnout there for the flagpole dedication with the honor guard and the salute. The flag is a point of pride for us. And as I mentioned to Danny, every time that he goes past, it should be a sign of pride for him, not only for the community, but for what he did as well, because we all certainly appreciate and thank. And I know our public safety officers are certainly grateful for everything that he did. And he's just a tremendous, upstanding young man who's about 1.5 feet taller than me, but he's a whole lot younger than me. It was very, very impressive, and that was great to be back or to attend. I also have a little bit of bragging to do since the last time that we met. Not only were we named the 4th safest city, Berkeley High, one of the best high schools, named one of the best high schools in the country. We were also named the best suburb in Michigan. Berkeley was the best suburb in Michigan by Go Banking, and featured in MSN.com's top suburb in every state. These are not necessarily new to us. We have been garnering the respect or admiration, I guess, of a number of publications over the past, really, about 10 years now or so. A lot of that is due to, again, the things that I mentioned earlier, our public safety, our Department of Public Works, our school system certainly, but also our residents and how engaged our residents are, and not only our residents, but our resident groups. At the beginning of this meeting, we had some comments about residents maybe not feeling involved in a process, and then we have the Dad's Club, who has done a number of things in our community, and I'm quite certain that the last thing the Dad's Club would ever want to do in this community is create trouble for anybody. They were looking to add an additional use to an improved baseball field already, and it's unfortunate that there was a lack of maybe potential communication, although in our instance we were aware of it, but wasn't something that came before council because it didn't need to come before council. It was an administrative approved use. Hopefully that can get worked out, and we can make sure that in the future, if you think it's going to impact residents, even if it is something already on an approved site, wouldn't hurt to send out a few notices to those that are closest just to make sure they are aware, because in the future, look, can't make everybody happy, I understand that, but at least letting somebody know why we are moving forward with that. And you know what, that's whoever's fault it is, just throw it on me. I should have done that, and that's fine. I knew it was happening. I supported it because I've known the use from the Dad's Club, and the fundraising and everything that went into it. Didn't anticipate having issues, so I will apologize for that, and I will figure out a way to make sure that doesn't happen again in the future. With that, it's 10 after 10. We're 10 minutes past our deadline. I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support. So moved by Councilmember Stedman, support by Councilmember Hennon. Ms. Harold, would you please call the roll?
Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Hennon?
Yes.
Stedman?
Yes.
Turbrack?
Yes. The September 16, 2019 meeting is adjourned.
Okay.